Hello, welcome back to the Level 1 News. Today's February 8th, 2022. We just missed the 222 thing. And we're back with the news. This is government and security. Yes, government security.
2-2, we didn't miss that. That was Wednesday.
Yeah, we
said that on the news.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Wow, my brain just shut that down.
Today,
we have orange soda today.
all right, yeah. Orange soda and a truckload of news, because you're not getting a truckload of anything else.
This is a design mistake in the packaging. The can is sideways. The picture of the can is sideways. The cans are correctly oriented, but the picture of the cans makes you think you turn it like this. That is incorrect. This is the correct orientation for the cans. Why would the designer do this?
To make space of, you're not going to print this way because there's a flap. You're maximizing your space.
That's overly practical.
They could have put the illustration on there and then put the can on the front.
But then there would have been a cut through it.
Yeah. To be fair, I kind of don't blame him for wanting to show off the cool illustration instead of the can.
Kind of ridiculous packaging for orange soda.
But why? This is Daredevil orange cream soda. That is clearly Evil Knievel. They just couldn't get the licensing. Crafted with real fruit juice and cane sugar. This comes to us courtesy of the lovely Canadians from last time. So this is this week as promised.
Do you know that there is, I can't remember how long ago it was, but Evil Knievel Jr. was doing the same kind of thing, but his stunts were terrible.
Because he didn't want to die.
You got to want to die to make that work.
But there were guys who wanted to die doing the same thing, doing really impressive stuff, but they couldn't get the press because they weren't Evil Knievel Jr. Does that make you want to die?
No, it's pretty good.
You seem torn on it. You've drank it 3
pensive.
times and you're like...
It's, well, no, I was mostly smelling it at first. It has a very neutral smell. It, you actually don't get the smell until it hits your mouth and then kind of starts to evaporate. So it's a very strong cream taste and a very subtle orange taste. It's almost just like cream soda with just a tiny pinch of orange zest.
That was processed in the same facility that processes oranges.
Number 2 ingredient is orange juice.
Yeah. It doesn't taste like that at all. It does taste kind of acidic.
Carbonated water, cane sugar. It's quality ingredients.
I can definitely taste the cane sugar, and it's also well-prepared cane sugar. So, like, in Florida, they do this thing where they burn the cane sugar because that's the cheapest way to deal with it, but there are other farms that cut the leaves off. And you can taste the difference in how the cane sugar was prepared, and this seems like this is good cane sugar.
Apparently there's also vegan sugar because apparently some sugar is filtered with like bone char or something like that, and they're like, oh, that's not okay if you're vegan.
What if it's human bones?
Then it's okay.
Okay. So we should start a factory that does that. We'll take your corpses, the unwanted corpses.
Your unwanted corpses.
Make sugar.
Who wants
it? It does have sodium benzoate in it.
Is that a preservative, probably?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also the way that you know this is good stuff. Is the expiration date is July 15th, 2022, which is right around the corner.
Or it could be that's been sitting on the shelf because of a supply chain issue.
It's been in the back of a truck.
Imagine there's just vats and vats and vats. So we don't have the cans. Our supply chain is broke down, and so then when they can,
that's a real concern. There's not enough aluminum.
They got to have a guy that keeps stirring at all times and just keep shifting them out. Don't let it harden.
There was one of the places around here switched one of their lines from aluminum to glass. Like they still had their old glass bottling equipment. So you're getting some stuff in vintage glass bottles because couldn't get the aluminum.
Glass is better anyway.
Yeah, but it's not as cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as cheap.
And it certainly doesn't stand shipping.
It's really weird too because that company also reported that they were doing better profit-wise. And it's like, wait a minute. The prices are going up and you're making more profit? That doesn't make sense.
But what will not be taken under advisement is your opinion on being spied upon. Because from here on out, I believe that we can all assume that we will be spied upon. And the tools that are used to spy upon us are more and more powerful. And in the highest levels of power, they sometimes decry these tools while secretly purchasing them.
The FBI confirms that it obtained NSO Pegasus software, but it didn't use it. Is this the IT guy equivalent of didn't inhale?
That is a very expensive package. And the story details how they had all these special requirements because the NSO Group, shockingly, spies on the people who buy their spying products. The FBI was very adamant that they not have that capability with the FBI version.
Of course.
And yet, according to the NSO Group, who are completely trustworthy, the FBI never turned it on.
We just like to look at it sometimes. We don't touch it. That's like me with chocolate when I was a kid. I just look at it. I haven't had a piece.
Wait, what? Let's elaborate on that.
When you're a kid, like one of my aunts had like a crystal dish with like candies in it. And sometimes she would catch me like opening it and she'd be like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just looking at it." But I wasn't just looking at it. I was usually eating a piece of chocolate.
Oh, okay. I thought that you actually were like not eating chocolate as a kid and just looking at it. And I'm like, what?
Well, who does that? No. Yeah, exactly. No one does that.
No one doesn't inhale.
Well, the FBI director has some nasty things to say about a surveillance state. No, not America. Even though what we just told you would make you think
Spider-Man
that,
meme.
but no, it's a different surveillance state. So this is, of course, the Spider-Man meme. If we ever do the chyrons and the pop-ups and everything, we got to do like a little Spider-Man that slowly comes
Points, yeah.
The FBI director has this quote: "No country poses a more severe threat than China." It's like, we just bought the NSO Group stuff from the Israelis. I was like, yeah, no, they're up front with their spying, and they'll let us buy their software so we can look at it and harden it. But China, they won't talk about it. And it's like,
Who do you think is a bigger threat to the average American and not the government?
probably not China.
You think?
I don't know.
I mean, they own a lot of social media stuff too, like TikTok.
Here's the thing. Your average person, as far as we know, is not likely to get Pegasus because it's very expensive. You have to be somebody who they care about enough. But as we've seen with all forms of technology, it's going to get easier and easier and cheaper and cheaper. Yeah. So this bedrock is going to ultimately build our prison.
Do you think that if we, as a matter of course in society, desired things that were more robustly architected and a little bit more resilient, that would become a self-solving problem? It's like, oh, well, we were able to Pegasus the phone, but the tools that the average person has in place, they were able to self-audit and detect that. And so now it's just, you're fighting against thousands of individual citizens instead of Tim Cook.
But what makes you think? I think people do desire that.
They do, yeah, but we can't have that in the way that things are currently structured.
So what are you going to do about it?
Our next story.
I don't think that's going to fix it. But yeah,
It's a good story, though.
It is definitely something.
Feel good.
Something we need, and maybe this is the proper way to do politics, right? Because they took this big umbrella thing that was never going to work because there was just too much in it. There was too much of a chance to derail it, and they said, "All right, we're going to pick one thing.
Yep.
Laser focus this. We're going to fix that one thing, and then maybe next year we'll fix the next thing. Instead of spending 5 years in limbo, maybe that's the solution."
Senate introduces a bill to allow farmers to fix their own equipment. The legislation is part of the broader right to repair movement opposing repair restrictions. So this talks about a guy who tried to buy a 20-year-old, or successfully bought a 20-year-old farmer, but then he talks about, it's like, well, you know, things are getting really dark and bleak here. And actually, the CNBC article, or the NBC article, doesn't go into enough detail, but slowly over the last few years, John Deere's been doing things like, if you are a repair shop, you must become part of their repair program, and then you're not allowed to do sales. And so only the very largest companies can have separate organizations where this is the repair org company and this is the sales org company, and they do different sales. Little things like that, which are not illegal, have sort of undermined the repair shops, and so they're all gone now. They're all, you know, authorized repair centers, and they have to do things according to a certain manual. And so it's really screwing small farmers like this one.
Well, and I think the article said, 77% of farmers said that they had bought old equipment because they're like, it's just not worth risking your entire crop if you have to have a repair done and they're backed up.
This guy went to his mechanic, who he's been working with, you assume, his whole life, and he was like, all right, tell me what model I need so none of this affects it. 95. 1995. Also, I love the photo shoot that they did with this
Yeah.
guy.
He's just like in his khakis, like hanging out in the field.
And he always has that same look on his face.
He's like, "Can I smile?" And they're like, "No."
They need to get the people that did the Chuck Testa commercials out to this guy's stat.
I don't reckon I like John Deere's business policies.
I don't think anyone does.
You know, when I play Farm Simulator, when you play games that have cool equipment like airplanes and cars and stuff, and you're like, oh, yeah, I want to drive a Ferrari. But I look at those John Deere equipment, and I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that on my farm. I'll get one of these European versions. I'm sure they're all that way, though.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Buy the other brand? Yeah, exactly. But this might be the thin end of the wedge for like the iPhone thing, because what if the thin end of the wedge on the iPhone thing is just, I want to audit the files that are on the flash on my iPhone. Give me a port that'll let me read from the memory that doesn't go through the processor in the iPhone. Seems reasonable.
I think the farmers are a lot more in touch
Yeah.
with their technology than the iPhone users. That's the problem that you have.
Well, and it's also like a security issue if your farmers can't produce enough food for your people.
Yeah, well, they talked about that in the article, and that guy described how sometimes there would be a 2-week wait for a technician.
Right.
2 weeks is death on
Yeah.
a farm. So,
They'll
There's
have
a
to-
frost coming on Thursday, and if we harvest today, which is only 2 days early in the growing season, we won't lose anything.
yeah. So, makes sense. And plus, I know that modern tractors are insanely high tech, but do they need to be?
I mean, it probably gives you some stats, but like, I mean, you could just do that yourself if you really wanted. I don't.
Well, last week we talked about the IRS requiring selfies. Yes, the IRS wants your selfies. And apparently that sparked more investigative reporting because it turns out that it doesn't stop there.
It's not just the IRS. The U.S. government wants your selfies as well. A controversial new program uses facial recognition as part of a national effort to verify identities and reduce fraud. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
And we talked about ID.me. That's not the only company. It turns out there are a bunch of companies that are rolling out this kind of thing, and they're all competing, and they're all horrible.
I don't know. Okay, so like, it's fine if maybe they don't want that at all, but like, why don't they use the licensing system, which already has a photo?
Because it's already been defrauded to the point that it's effectively broken. You have states like California that are literally selling their entire database to anybody with money, which includes criminals.
But that's not the entire reason why. Driver's licenses are being demonized for political reasons because of the voting stuff. Right. So anything where you would require a driver's license, which is everything, by the way,
Yeah.
now has to be called into question for political reasons. Because some people don't have driver's licenses, and they can't get them because they're not legal citizens. But we still want them to be able to do everything.
Well, there's some people too who just don't drive, so I mean, I guess that's fair. But you can get a state ID. Why did we want all these private companies?
You cannot get a state ID if you are a Mexican citizen.
But there are
That's
people.
what they
We
care
know
about.
some people who don't drive who had to have state IDs.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. And plus, if you get too old to drive, like
Yeah.
there's a good reason for that.
But it's like, why wouldn't you just use the in-place system instead of hiring a bunch of third-party? That's dumb.
I just told you why.
I know.
It's also hard to prove you're a citizen if you've been chronically homeless.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that bait about them voting and whether or not that's a good idea. Waymo has secrets.
It's the orange soda.
They have a lot of secrets, Waymo does, and they are very, very protective of them. But here's the thing, when you get into the driving business, that data needs to be available for everybody. It's very important, especially the safety data. Critical that we all see the safety data. But Waymo says, I don't think so, bro. And the California DMV seems to be like nodding and winking. Is that what you get out of this?
Yeah, that's exactly. Waymo sues the state DMV to keep robo-taxi safety details secret. Imagine Ford suing the state DMV to keep the seatbelt safety secret. Does that even make any sense?
Oh, speaking of seatbelts, I forgot to add it because it's new. Did you see the Tesla recall?
No, what was it?
The seatbelt chime doesn't work in any of them.
Oh,
The seatbelt chime. You know there's a function in there somewhere where it's like call chime. Instead of just being an actual, solid state manual switch. No.
I wonder if they're trying to fix it with, like, the driver-facing camera. It's like the AI. It's like, does it look like they're wearing a seatbelt? No? Okay, well, we need to beep.
And maybe it's one of Elon's weird, like, I don't think it's cool when it beeps at me. It feels too demanding, so he just, like, told him to cut it.
I want to be free. When
Yeah.
I drive.
Our customers want to be free.
I dream about being thrown from a vehicle. So,
It's
yeah.
a reoccurring nightmare.
Waymo, someone did a Freedom of Information. The DMV gave it back to Waymo, and they're like, I don't know, are there any trade secrets here? They blacked the whole thing out. and so...
Redacted.
Now, the phrase they used in this article was the DMV invited Waymo to sue it. I don't know if that's just the author taking liberty there, but what they then explained is because of the way these lawsuits play out, they've probably got 3 to 5 years. And in 3 to 5 years, no one will care anymore about this.
Yeah.
The industry will have moved completely beyond it.
Or the information will be out there in another way.
Yeah, from all the crashes,
Yeah.
all the Waymo crashes. The big tech mergers continue to march along. They tend to, like, you get a lot of big wins when you announce them, but one after the other, they're getting knocked down. Will this one survive?
The FTC to review Microsoft's $68.7 billion deal to buy Activision Blizzard, a report says. So this is true from day one. Like, there were a lot of headlines, us included, where it was like, they're going to buy. But this was always subject to FTC approval. And I'd say the outlook for that is not great, given who is currently in charge.
The article mentioned, like, that would make Microsoft the third biggest gaming company, and I was like, who's the first two?
Sony and somebody else.
So
Nintendo, maybe? I don't feel like
I don't
Nintendo's
think
that big anymore.
Nintendo's small compared to the other ones.
Yeah,
Nintendo's dysfunctional and chews off its own arms despite itself.
yeah. The article didn't say who the other two were, and so I was trying to think. Maybe Valve?
Sony's for sure one of them.
Yeah.
Well, the big App Store wars rage on, and I don't know that anybody saw this as the eventual ending. I got to think that the tech companies have too much power to allow this.
No,
But-
I think this is all about something else.
If the EU could pull this off, my God, would this change the entire world overnight?
Apple and Google could be forced to give up full control of their app stores. So this is the article that talks about both Europe and what's happening with the attorneys general in America, right? Because both of them are looking at it and saying, well, you having full control over your app store seems like a monopoly, and you're going to have to give up some control. Maybe it's a board of directors, or maybe it's, industry players come together to control your app store. We're not sure what that looks like, but you should not be able to control the platform. It's a long-winded way of saying you should be able to load applications not through the app store.
This is EU, UK, Japan, 35 attorney generals or attorneys general, and 2 Senate bills.
Yeah.
So this is a big wave of...
It's an international interest.
I don't know that it gets better, though. I mean, an outlaw app store would be a place that spreads a lot of horror.
Yeah.
I mean, we should be free to enjoy that horror if that's what we want. But mobile users are, they're not always very smart.
Pretty much all users are not very smart with, like, managing their technology. It's really terrifying. Oops, accidentally NSO'd myself.
And when you are being attacked by those app stores and all the evil, horrible people out there who are trying to steal your crypto and your identity and so forth, you might be thinking, well, the U.S. government will take care of me. But no, the U.S. government is busy fulfilling its own ideas about the technological world, which, as you just mentioned, involves gaining control.
The Earn It Act is back in Congress, and this is just, it's terrible. So the Earn It Act, we talked about it in 2020, so it's like 2 years ago, and this basically is going to mandate online filtering and the Apple stuff that everybody was up in arms about, where Apple was going to just automatically filter and flag your images. A couple of days ago, Google rolled out their document filtering thing, where if you have a text file that contains the number 1, it was blocking people's access because it thought that it was, illegal material, but it was actually just bugs in the algorithm, because of course it was just bugs in the algorithm. This will force those kind of things by law under the guise of protecting ourselves. Now, you remember the law that shut down Backpage? It was like certain categories of website would no longer be protected under Section 230, and then those websites they just closed up.
Yeah, and so that's been a while ago. We've seen numbers since then, and we have asked, hey, why don't you prove us that this did anything?
Nothing.
No one can, because no one was even paying attention because it was never about that.
And Earnit is that, but worse.
Plus, Earnit also folds in the whole 230 thing.
Yeah.
So they're looking to control the online, platforms by saying that they are now liable for what is said on your platform. And if that's the case, you have no choice but to censor overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
Why would you ever take a chance?
I really think the Earnit stuff is a cudgel for these governments threatening the App Store control stuff. They're saying, if you don't help us with this is what's coming in terms of antitrust. Because that's usually how these things go. And it's dishonest all the way around. And
if you are a billionaire who is essentially above the law and those two things don't work, I wouldn't put it past them to try this.
U.S. intelligence community report says the pulsed electromagnetic energy thing could explain Havana Syndrome. So this article we had an article a couple of weeks ago that talked about thousands of cases that were whittled down into a few that were unexplainable. This article talks about 200 cases they've whittled down into maybe 15 or 20 that are unexplainable. But one of the explanations is some sort of really high energy pulsed electromagnetic pulse.
I hope that pulsed electromagnetic energy becomes a buzzword in the media in the near future because its acronym is P.
It's funny because I'm 12.
Oh, or .PEE. To put it in there.
And you know who probably had a lot of PEE in their flight suit is the person who dumped this F-35 off the deck.
I got secondhand anxiety reading this because I was like, oh, what if I was the person who did this?
Have you seen the video?
No, I didn't see the video. I read the article, but
you don't get to see the actual plane hitting the deck. It's just a guy filming the plane coming in, and you're like, "Ooh, that angle
doesn't
looks
seem
wrong.
right.
That doesn't seem right." And it's like, thump,
Ooh.
splash.
F-35C fighter jet. The race is on to reach a sunken U.S. plane before China. There's an official comment from Chinese representatives in this article, which was, "Huh?"
They were like, "We are not interested in this aircraft," and that was all it said.
They're so interested in the aircraft. So the big thing at stake here is the internal communication system. These things are so tied in. I think the idea here, and with a lot of the modern military, is because we have so much telemetry and cameras and everything, the commanders are kind of like real-time strategying the battlefield now. So this thing is constantly feeding back and taking in input from other places, and there might be some encryption keys in there. But you're going to lose one of those eventually, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they lose it? Was it right off the coast of China? Or was it technically international water? I can't remember.
No, I think it's because they're out there in those Chinese waters,
Yeah, they could technically take it, yeah.
A lot of these things are supposed to have self-destruct things where you hit the button and it, deploys thermite and then all of that's destroyed.
I don't think this has... It is carrying missiles, probably.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? The black box, they suspect, has less than, I think, 7 days of battery. The rescue ship is scheduled to get there in 10.
Wow.
It's cutting it close.
It's going to be a difficult... That's like hitting a golf ball into the pond.
How do you feel if you're the guy who crashed that? I mean, you're probably not feeling good anyway because you've just been in a crash, but...
Yeah, I think it was ruled pilot error. Ooh. So you're probably never getting another expensive plane.
Clean an aircraft carrier with a toothbrush.
With your tongue.
Yeah.
Oh.
Boiler Snake, he was actually dishonorably discharged from the Navy flight program, and he doesn't like to talk about it.
They should have never put him in a plane. He has no hands.
I don't know what they were thinking.
He blames it on a malfunctioning valve.
They couldn't even get a parachute to stay on him. They just slide right off.
He's lucky he didn't die when he fell out of that airplane.
Well, Ohio got the big fab plant. Actually, it's going to be 2 of them.
Some people were upset about your comments about Ohio last week.
What did I say about Ohio?
You were joking that this was like the biggest thing that had ever happened to Ohio, and some guy was like, actually, we have a lot of manufacturing.
I said Columbus.
Yeah.
And tell me one thing more important than this ever happened to Columbus.
There was one comment that was useful that talked about a Chinese company that bought a glass manufacturing plant, or a factory, and they turned it into a glass manufacturing plant. That was actually fascinating.
Well, they're getting it, or at least we think they are. But the question is, why Columbus, Ohio? Again, there's nothing there, really,
The Associated Press brings us our answer.
We're going to get the answer.
Ohio lured Intel's chip plant with a $2 billion incentive package. Also, another useful nugget from this article, 40 states were considered for the location of this. So that probably included us.
And then they were like, ugh, what's in Kentucky?
The interstate.
Oh, there's bourbon and horses, too, if you're rich.
Too bad the silicon fabrication process doesn't run on bourbon.
Or horsepower. I like to think in this picture, he's like, I just farted, don't react. It's really bad.
They really picked kind of a shady photo for this article.
It's got a real sulfur smell to it, but don't tell anybody. And the EU regulators are merciless. Are those chocolate chip cookies?
Looks
They
like
are. What a cool photo.
Why? But they are merciless when it comes to the big tech companies. They're doing way more than our government is, and they are bleeding them dry. And just week after week, they're like, yep, you kept doing stuff wrong. They're not. It's true.
Yeah.
They are doing stuff wrong.
Regulators find Europe's ad tech industry acted unlawfully. This has to do with the cookie consent pop-up banners. It turns out that it's like, no, I guess this is, again, okay on a technicality, but actually against the EU law. This is another level 1 prediction. Remember we said this is a technicality, and the technical people think that because they're skirting a loophole here, but that's not how it works.
This was made by Mixmagic on Getty Images. Do you think this was made for this topic, or did somebody just make this?
It's cookies, like they're making a joke, like cookies, like browser cookies.
Yeah,
Right, but
the
they
EU
got it
flag.
from Getty Images. What I'm saying is, did whoever made that, did they do it because of the EU browser cookie issue?
There's probably been enough tech stories about the EU that they were like, this will be used eventually.
Probably somebody just sat down and was like, we need a picture for this, and they typed in cookies and EU, and that was the first result.
Yeah, but it begs the question of why you made that originally.
Oh, as someone who has to look at stock photos a lot, you'd be surprised what you could find. The most obscure things imaginable.
You know the old guy with like the expression?
Yeah, hide the pain, Harold.
Somebody made a face mask that's his.
Oh,
It's horrific.
He has his own TED Talk, which is actually pretty good.
yeah, I think, hasn't he kind of embraced his internet
Yeah.
fame? He's like, okay.
But it's not a real TED Talk, right? There's so many splinter TED Talks that's you can't even.
TEDx is the
TEDx
like
is
smaller
nonsense. Why waste your time? Well, the EU is, they're going after the big tech companies, but the real problem with big tech when it comes to EU is they don't have any of it. They've got a couple of little ones, and they're doing everything they can to keep our companies from buying them. So that is why they are really worried about the future of that.
The EU has drafted a counteroffensive to both the US and China on technology rules. So this has to do with fabrication, availability of technology, sanctions, etc., etc. It reads really good, but it seems like it's just political insanity.
Yeah, they didn't lay out a lot of distinct steps.
No.
They basically just said, the U.S. and China have a lot of technology, and we don't, and we're worried about that. As you should be.
Are you going to do anything? We'll talk about that at some other press conference.
Well, they are going to do one thing, Krista.
They don't even have an arm anymore.
This is, I think this is going to be every big tech deal that involves a European company is going to hit this wall from now on.
Yes. Germany has scuttled its $5 billion chip deal with Taiwan firm amid tech sovereignty concerns. That's the headline, but you read it, and it seems like Germany just didn't get their paperwork in time.
Yeah, it seems like this could still happen. But they had some press releases, and they were talking about being really upset about it. The Chinese government was also involved here, really dragging their feet on their approval.
This is also GlobalWafers. It's like Taiwan firms. Like, is that TSMC? No. GlobalWafers.
So but China gets a say in the Taiwan thing?
Well, it's complicated. I don't know what the particulars are of that, but one time when I went to Taiwan, I actually accidentally got a cell phone on the wrong carrier. It was like, this carrier is for Chinese people visiting Taiwan. This carrier is for Taiwanese citizens, and it's just sort of understood. I didn't understand.
You're neither of those things.
Is that like just a cultural thing, or is that actually like codified in law or something?
One of the cell phones data plan was behind the Great Firewall of China. The other one, not so much.
Oh.
But I bet if you look Asian, you can't get the other one, right?
No. If you're
You just have to show your ID, right?
yeah, and it's like, oh, you're a Taiwanese citizen, you get this one.
Oh, so they're doing that to protect themselves when they go back. I got you. Wow. Talk about being, and I'm not, so no disrespect. I understand. I might probably do it too.
Happy Chinese New Year.
But having the boot on your neck so hard that you're like, oh, no. Don't give me the Freedom Phone. For the love of God, don't give me the Freedom Phone.
Give me the Chinese spyware phone.
Happy Lunar New Year, I guess, in that case, as the case may be.
And El Salvador, they are doing the big Bitcoin experiment.
I chuckled at this.
They get a lot. When this first started, a lot of big names and governments and stuff came out and they were like, they're being silly. That's never going to work. They should not do that. Now that they've done it, the rhetoric has been amped up a bit.
El Salvador angrily rejects the IMF call to drop Bitcoin use. They actually came right out and said, look, we're trying to get $1.3 billion from the IMF. We have all this real collateral to back that up, but we are not dropping Bitcoin. We're not going to alter our terms with Bitcoin. And if you're making this $1.3 billion loan contingent on us dropping Bitcoin, be honest about that and come out and say that. And they didn't do that.
Jeff Bezos should step in and loan them that money.
Yes.
It's funny because he could.
There's a lot of Bitcoin whales that could probably loan them the money too.
He'd have to sell assets, though. He would destroy the market by liquidating.
The Winklevi, one of the Winklevi could...
They'd have to destroy the Bitcoin market.
Couldn't Bezos just sell his mega yacht?
Lease it out, Airbnb it for a couple
Yeah.
weeks.
I don't think it's worth $1 billion. It might be worth $500 million.
I can't remember if we put this in the stories or not, but didn't they have like the shipyard where it was built?
Yes.
It's so
we do
big.
have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. I won't talk about it.
In Israel, they have a bit of an issue once in a while with rockets and other ordnance falling from the sky, and they have a lot of interesting and very technologically advanced ways of dealing with that, but they're all very, very expensive. Even those interceptor rockets, every one you fire costs a ton of money, but you know what's super cheap? Lasers.
Israel's laser missile defense system really is a new Star Wars, according to this analysis. So if you read the white paper on this thing, it's really awesome. Finally, it can shoot things down through cloud cover. It can shoot things down through atmospheric interference. It's a laser that will track even hyperballistic missiles or hypersonic ballistic missiles, so many times the speed of sound. It does everything. If you have enough of these, a country's air force no longer matters.
So they are going to put them on the southern border. They've got 4 or 6 of them or something like that, but they are immediately building more. They say, yes, we must ring the country in these things because they're saying that Iran is trying to kill them. And India, a lot of companies are taking an anti-crypto stance. Of course, we've got Russia and China leading the way there, but India is taking a much different approach, probably a better approach for the people.
India proposes a 30% tax on crypto and NFT income. Further, this income would be exempt from all forms of deductions. So you couldn't deduct, say, buying a bunch of mining equipment. And it seems pretty hardened against loopholes where you would take your crypto and then export it into the local Indian currency and then convert it back to something else. But it does seem like there's an exception for Bitcoin. So if you're a Bitcoin holder, you don't have to pay capital gains, I guess the equivalent of what we would call capital gains.
Wait, even if you sell it?
That's what it's for, just as long as you didn't convert it into a local currency, yes. You only pay the tax when you do the local currency conversion.
Right, when you exchange it. Well, that's true everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, our government wants the tax held everything. Our government wants unrealized profits taxed next.
Yeah.
Which means you could pay taxes and never get the money. You lose the money. You didn't actually earn any money.
Yeah.
That's coming. We'll have that.
They'll probably do that on 401ks first because there's no other.
So we don't get Social Security or 401k?
No. They'll find a way to rate it.
Well, moving on to security. We've learned recently that there was a zero-click iPhone exploit. There was an iPhone exploit that you really couldn't do much about. No one knew about it. It was brand new in the world. It was proven to have been used several times by the NSO Group. But horrible new news, not just them.
Reuters reports that zero-click exploit was also used by another Israeli surveillance firm in addition to NSO Group. So there's a good bet that several people around the world in various such groups have also used that exploit.
If you recall, Apple sued NSO Group because of this thing, because they were saying, hey, you're hurting our product by hurting our users and, exploiting it. So now, are we going to find out in some kind of court discovery exactly how many companies have this? That'd be nice to know, wouldn't it?
We're going to find a lower bound that's going to be disturbingly high.
Now, you might be thinking, well, the NSO Group, they have a right to do that. They're not bad people. They're just, it's a new wave of technology and you're afraid of it because you don't understand it, but it's going to make the world a better place. They're following the law. Are they?
NSO offered U.S. mobile security firm, quote-unquote, bags of cash, a whistleblower has claimed. The spyware firm denies doing business with Mobilium, and co-founder has no reconciliation of using the phrase. Oh.
I like how explicit, just bags of cash. It's not even subtle.
So this company had, a way into the entire mobile network. They were like deep into it somewhere, and then NSO was like, "We want to be part of that," and they were told, "No, why would we do that?" Answer, of course, bags of cash. Which makes me very confident, in fact, that the NSO Group has hit a lot of obstacles that bags of cash solved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the war on free information in terms of academics. My God, if the last 2 years has taught us anything, it's that this information needs to be public. 100%. I don't care about your trade secrets. It's academic. It's research-based. Everybody should have access to it. But my God, do they fight it.
Academic journal claims that Fingerprints PDFs for quote-unquote ransomware, not surveillance. And I'll take nonsensical answers for 200, Alex.
Can you think of any series of events where you get ransomware and having hashed PDFs helps you?
No. So just to make it clear, what they're doing is you get a PDF, you download a PDF from them, and it puts something in the PDF that is uniquely tied to your account. So if that PDF shows up, like if your grad student takes that and then posts that on the Pirate Bay, it's linked to your account.
I don't want to click away to Twitter, but you can see here. So this guy bought PDFs different times with the same account and noted that the hash changed. So they were tracking the individual document, not even the user, but the individual document. And that timestamp and hash, they could go back to their server and not only check the user account, but the IP address of who did that.
Yeah.
So
This is
clearly
the first NFT?
They said, could you please explain to us how this would be useful in a ransomware environment? And he responded with an email that was just links to news stories about ransomware.
The person just responded, no, period. No heart emoji.
Did you guys watch that White House press briefing about the false flag in Ukraine? Mm-hmm. This guy was like, all right, there's a video. We're aware that there's going to be a video coming out that shows a false flag attack in Ukraine with crisis actors. The Russians are going to release it, and they're going to use that as a pretext to invade Ukraine. And the reporter was like, wait, what? Can you tell us more about that? And I was like, I just told you about it. I was like, no, I'm looking for some kind of proof. You're just telling me this. There's no evidence. He's like, oh, you don't trust the government? You trust the Russians? Like, he got real in his
weird,
face.
yeah.
I was like, well, that's the same thing
Get a
here.
couple screen grabs from this video. I mean, something.
So we can know what it looks like?
Could you link me to the IMDb page for this film?
Where's the Wikipedia citation needed?
We've learned recently that a lot of people are using AirTags for interesting reasons. Did we do the moving story? We did that one,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Where the woman put AirTags in her moving boxes to prove that the moving company was lying to her.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have, remember the AirTag of the woman in, was it Germany?
Yep.
Mailed it to the secret police.
Oh,
and
yeah, and found the new
they are.
agency. Yeah.
So AirTags are a crazy new tool, but it can be used against you as well. They do have a security feature, but it turns out not very robust.
Silenced AirTags with disabled speakers are popping up for sale online. So you can go on eBay and buy an AirTag where when you activate it, it'll beep to help you find it. but you can disable the beeping.
I think there was one that was on Etsy, and I was like, Etsy? Like the craft store?
It does another thing too. I don't understand exactly how it works, but if, safety feature that will alert someone to the presence of an AirTag that's not their own. So if one of those movers had an iPhone and he was paying attention, he could have been like, wait a minute, there's an AirTag here. Every time I walk past this box,
It beeps, yeah.
But now these will not beep because they've been disabled. Apple's going to use that as an excuse to do something terrible.
I mean, it's a kind of amazing way to do GPS tracking without even having any kind of GPS receiver or cellular signal or anything. It's crazy.
Well, another week, another blockchain platform has fallen.
And come back.
It just happens over and over. And this really, remember when we talked about, the FBI and everybody comes out and they're like, don't pay the ransom. This is worse than paying a ransom.
Blockchain platform Wormhole says that it's retrieved the $324 million stolen by hackers.
How do they do it? They paid a bug bounty. A bug bounty. So they went to whoever this person was, and they said, listen, $234 million, you're never going to clear it. You're never going to clean it. We'll give you 10, just give it back. And they said, all right, I'll do that. I hope that's some kind of secret sting operation. This one is, I read this and I was like, wow, they're really.
The EU's not screwing around.
Yeah, they are not screwing around. But then you see the amount.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well.
Maybe they are screwing around.
I guess you would, if you had to do that every week or every day, you would go ahead and fix it.
Yeah.
But it's so small.
Website fined by German court for leaking a visitor's IP address via Google Fonts. So this was a web page that embedded Google Fonts. And because Google could theoretically record your IP address.
Theoretically?
No, that's the article. That was like, you don't have to show proof that they recorded your IP address. It's just.
No, but I mean, they are.
Well,
we know that they are.
They were fined $100. But it could balloon up to $150,000 if the website operator doesn't take steps to correct this immediately.
I bet all the users of that website are like, oh, a slightly different font, and they just leave immediately.
Oh, you might be surprised.
Well, Google will actually let you download and embed the font directly. It's fairly permissive licensing. It's usually just more convenient to do the embed.
Yeah.
I also get the CDN aspect of it. It comes from a content delivery network, so you're not downloading the same font over and over again.
We love downloading the same font over and over again.
Apparently Germany does.
And some crimes, they're brilliant. They come up with these crazy ways to steal things and all these NFT attacks. And sometimes it's just really like, how did you think you were going to get away with this? You have a logistics system that is maybe the best on earth, and they're never going to notice this?
Amazon warehouse manager pleads guilty to stealing $273,000 worth of computer parts. It honestly seemed like more work than it was worth. Because he was just like, oh, let's do this, and then cover this up, and then do this other thing. And it's like, oops, we shipped them an empty box.
Shipped them all to his home, which, mistake
ballsy.
number 2.
Yeah.
And then instead of, fencing them out one at a time, wholesale gave them to another computer company.
Mm.
Wow.
Kind of dumb.
Won't be seeing him anymore, especially at the Amazon warehouse. You know what? What's going to be funny is in 25 years or 10 years, when Amazon starts using prison labor, he'll be back to work for Amazon.
Oh.
Yeah.
And perhaps the darkest story, it's not the darkest story of the week, but it's terrible because it shows the gross opportunism that Americans will display during a crisis.
Beware fake sites for testing for the thing. There have been a lot of stories where in a lot of cities, these pop-up testing facilities show up and there's, they seem legit. People are doing stuff and they're out the door. And a lot of the time you don't have to give them a lot of info. You can just give them like your name and address, or maybe your name and address and social security number, as this article points out. But the scam was that if you get enough information to identify an individual, you can bill the government for testing, but you never actually have to return the tests to the individual person. And so if you collect the information from a whole bunch of people and you get them to sign some paperwork, the government will reimburse you for testing for the thing, even if you didn't really do any testing, even if you didn't follow storage protocols, even if you didn't really, have any intention of actually doing anything to be helpful.
When I saw this headline, I was imagining it was just someone who really likes swabbing people's noses.
Well, they pointed out that not only are some of these completely fake. Remember the story we did about the one where it was a husband and wife?
Yeah.
And they invented it all, fabricated it from the ground up. Now, they got caught. They're going to do some jail time, most likely. But they said in some of these situations, it wasn't that. It was a legit site. And someone would just creep in and start taking people's information, just stealing information.
Wow.
So watch out, I guess. They do instruct you of different places you can go and try to vet them. I don't know how good that is.
You just got four free tests. That was hard to say.
Did you? I never got mine.
I haven't gotten mine yet, but I signed up for them.
That's been a month ago.
Was that a month ago?
Yeah.
Good grief. I signed my mom up for it, and my mom tried to sign up for it, and then she got like a thing that was like, someone else has already signed you up, and it really puzzled her.
She's gonna be jailed for fraud.
My daughter did it. They're like,
Meanwhile,
nope.
these will get a community award for innovative entrepreneurial something.
Oh yeah, they'll get more tax money.
What a world.
It's really horrifying. Yay, capitalism.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Hello. Welcome back to the Level 1 News. We're here on February 9th with business and robot, but it's mostly space stories this week.
Space and robot were merged for administrative reasons. That's just how it is. Almost everything in space is a robot.
That's
right?
true. There's a few humans, but not many.
It works. And there's more robots than humans in space. Mm-hmm. How about that?
There's more robots than people on Mars.
And it seems to be that there's more gaming companies, or not enough. Actually, there's more people looking to gobble up gaming companies than there are gaming companies. And that means that valuations are really, really pushing it up there. Now, this happened, of course, in our week-long cycle. So we jumped directly from the acquisition story into the explanation of why that number is so high.
Sony is spending $1.2 billion to keep Destiny 2 devs from leaving. A major chunk of the Bungie acquisition price tag is just to retain talent. So Bungie, the studio that brought us Halo, which was, I think, originally for the Mac. Something like that. I don't know. But, yeah. So a lot of the employees at Bungie own company stock. And so with this acquisition, they could just cash out and leave. But the deal was structured so that they have to stay. But if they stay, $1.2 billion of the purchase price is going to go to those employees. So
one of them described it as golden handcuffs. Because the way the money works is,
not wrong.
If you agree to it, you get a big payout, but you don't get it till the end of a certain amount of time. And you have to stay there the entire time. Also, you're almost surely thinking of Marathon.
Yeah.
Right?
Marathon?
The game Marathon?
Oh, maybe.
That was Apple's shooter. Back when
maybe.
Apple had nothing.
Maybe. I can't remember.
Can it really be that Microsoft bought something that was originally on Apple and made it their whole mascot?
I remember something like that and chuckling at the time that was like only Microsoft.
Well, there's something that we can't chuckle about because it's just really defeating when you see these kinds of numbers and you know that it's being done off of your back and you're really not getting much of the carrot.
We're a small portion of this, very small.
Yeah, but we only need a very small portion of this number as well.
Yeah.
YouTube ad revenue tops $8.6 billion, beating Netflix in the quarter. Google-owned video platform earned $28.8 billion in advertising revenue in 2021.
That's a lot.
So they got $28 billion in advertising revenue and $8 billion in gross profit. So $20 billion went to expenses and creators.
They're doing well. If you read their comments about they're really over the moon about it. Like, oh yeah, we see a huge possibilities, and then they start listing all the things that are going to destroy YouTube.
Yeah.
They really want to they want the shorts thing to pick up really badly.
Yeah, they're trying to compete with TikTok, and maybe we should do shorts. Maybe that would boost us in the algorithm.
What are our shorts going to be?
I don't know.
We literally can't have a short thought.
Yeah.
It takes me 10 minutes just to explain the thought that I'm having.
It's like 45-minute episodes of the news condensed into like a 2-second clip for YouTube, TikTok.
It's like Blipfers, but for bad technology news.
This You know, I mentioned in the last episode that it would be nice to have a little automated Spider-Man to pop up.
Yeah.
When people are, blaming somebody for something that they've clearly did. I think this might be like a 4 Spider-Man fire.
Right.
This is the maximum number of Spider-Mans because, my God, the hypocrisy here. But they're not wrong.
Microsoft says that if Apple isn't stopped now, its antitrust behavior will just get worse. As one crab pulls at the other crab to prevent it from leaving the bucket.
Crab bucking son of a bitch. You're staying down here with me.
So, yeah, this is all about, the whole App Store, Epic Games argument. Microsoft clearly has picked a side, but considering their past, maybe they're not the best people to advise us.
I mean, yeah, it's like they're not necessarily wrong, but...
I mean, I guess it could add credence to your statement when you're like, that's antitrust, and I should know.
Let me buy Blizzard.
Look, we were just trying to take over the browser. They're taking over your entire computing experience. What the heck, Department of Justice? What the heck?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do too much about it. I don't think anybody wants to upset the big tech apple cart before the midterm elections.
Also, a lot of those senators own a lot of Apple stock, so
that's
they don't
true.
want to.
Yeah.
It's like, what's a few electronically pureed babies between friends if that helps the stock price? I mean,
If that gets Nancy Pelosi another summer home, it was worth it.
yeah.
Really. I mean, let's think about what really matters in this country.
Rich people getting richer.
And rich people getting really nice internet. Because if this works the way they describe, it is amazing, but it is quite pricey.
SpaceX rolls out premium Starlink satellite internet tier at $500 per month. It's got a bigger dish that Elon Musk says has twice the bandwidth and capability. It's also guaranteed to work anywhere and not just your address that they're providing you service.
Pricey, they expect that to be for business customers. So I guess if you needed high-speed internet and you had a mobile, kind of like maybe a food truck.
What's going to be really frustrating is that it's going to be good enough for the rural areas, and the rural telephone companies aren't going to build anything now. It's like they got all that money for building fiber, and they're just going to say, satellite service, somebody else is providing that. It's fine. They're just going to keep the money.
And
They're never going to build any. They're not. It's not going to spur them into action.
Well, hopefully it puts them out of business. Eventually, that'll take forever. But hopefully we'll also have competing satellite providers and not what we have now with the ISPs.
Yeah. I'd still rather have a fiber optic connection, but...
Well.
Can't wait to not be able to see the night sky because it's all filled with satellites.
It's all AT&T's fault.
Oh.
But when it comes to internet providers, even Mr. Musk, who is supposed to be on this bleeding edge of everything, is going with the monthly subscription model. And from the days when cable television came out, everybody has been complaining, hey, I'd rather not have what you choose. I'd rather have what I choose, and I'd rather only pay you when I use it. And the industry was always like, you're an idiot. We don't have the technology for that. Well, now we do, right? There's really nothing stopping us from doing it now. And these guys say that they have the solution.
Metronome raises $30 million to help software companies shift to usage-based pricing models. So think the Adobe Creative Cloud subscription where you subscribe to software and it immediately stops working if you stop subscribing.
And not only that, but we're talking about metered usage.
Yeah.
We're talking about all the dogs throwing up and I ran to take care of that and I left Photoshop open. Oops, that cost me $50 because it was running for 24 hours.
It's funny because the Adobe Suite has not really... It's really not getting any better.
It's really not.
And it still costs the same amount of money, and Adobe's really not doing a lot to...
It's a subscription service is what kills me now.
They're really not doing a lot to propel the industry forward.
We really jumped off of the actual story there and just crapped on Adobe.
Yeah, well, listen.
They're
not
example.
Involved. They're not doing this as far as we know.
No, they have a subscription software.
Yeah, there's a subscription
But
now.
it's not metered.
No.
It's a monthly... See, these guys want to get away from the monthly subscription.
To where it's just usage-based.
And it's usage-based for everything.
But I mean, that brings up Wendell, you said rather, where oops, I left it open because the dog vomited, and
Right.
now.
Yeah, Adobe would absolutely do that if they could.
Yeah. And they'll do nasty things like, it's like, oh, well, it was still in the system tray.
Yeah.
You didn't understand that it was in the system tray? Sorry, you still owe us money.
And then you have to close out all your documents at the end of the workday every day.
Oh, you had it open on your phone? Ooh. that's really going to cost you.
See, isn't this the thing that the economists call capturing all the fluidity in the market? Because, like, if you can, buy a product and your labor turns it into value, then you get to enjoy all of that. But if the amount of labor that you put in is proportional to how much you have to pay for the software, then they basically become your partner in whatever you're doing that's creating value, which ultimately leads to the large companies capturing literally all of the economy.
And the government and the regulators. And you know what that leads to? It leads to chemical spills.
Yes.
Almost
Good
indefinitely.
segue.
Now, you know what? I didn't see any stories. Did they get the fab back up from the power outage?
I don't know. Maybe.
But, old Samsung, now, to their credit, they are bringing fabs into this country, just like Intel. It's what we need, right? We got to be, whenever the Chinese war kicks off, these are going to be very important. But they do have environmental consequences that we as Americans are used to foisting onto the Chinese people. It's like, oh, you can't breathe? Well, we sure love our phones. But now it's in our backyard.
Samsung says the leak that was caused up to 763,000 gallons of wastewater spill fixed. This article is really forgiving calling it wastewater. It was acid.
It was very diluted, though. They were very careful to point that out.
It was so diluted. Just a little bit of acid.
It was so diluted there was not one single fish found alive for the entire stretch of the creek.
Yeah, they saw some iron coloration on the side of it, and they were like, that's weird. And they looked, and yeah, for sure, there was an underground pipe that had burst, and no one knew about it. It was like 100 days or something?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I wonder if that was a winter weather thing, but if it's been under there for 100 days, absolutely not.
It literally killed everything.
Oh, no, it's not been 100 days. Spill investigators, that's when they looked at the thing. It did give a number of days, but wouldn't you have gotten a water bill? I guess it was wastewater, right? Yeah. So you're only paying when it's coming in.
Yeah.
But weren't you looking at your reservoirs and you'd be like, something's not right with
You're driving into the factory at night and you're like, what's all that scum on the water? What is that?
How does the whole factory smell like sulfur?
What a happy happenstance. We're not producing as much waste as we usually do.
I bet local fishermen noticed that way sooner than anybody else, and they brought it up at like a town hall meeting, and everyone was like, it's fine.
Everything died.
I think they own that property.
Yeah.
They own the tributary, so there probably wasn't anybody fishing there.
Wow.
It's on their own. But, it's groundwater, so.
Of course, yeah.
Even though they own it, it doesn't mean that so.
Well, hopefully that won't be too lethal once it leaches into the potable water.
That's actually the scariest thing about the story, because they were like, we're not real sure what the long-term consequences of this are.
It's a few years ago we had bourbon leak. Was it the Kentucky River?
Yeah.
And it killed all the fish.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we know we can drink that.
But you can't
At
drink
least
that
it's
much
not
of it.
acid.
You know what? Fish could probably drink a little bit of it.
But yeah, not as much.
They just can't breathe it.
Yeah.
Try snorting bourbon, Krista. You won't cry.
No, I won't like it.
Yeah. And the acquisitions continue to roll on. Will this one happen? Actually, there's already questions.
Cloud computing virtualization company Citrix to be acquired for $16.5 billion. Citrix, once the juggernaut of virtualization, has been surpassed by pretty much everybody else in the industry. This is a surprising acquisition too. It was like, what was it? It was a company that I hadn't heard of before.
It was one of those like investment partner. Vista Equity Partners, an affiliate of Elliott Investment Management called Evergreen Coast Capital Corporation.
Hopefully this doesn't turn into a company that starts suing people for intellectual property violations.
You think there's any tax shelters amongst all that jumble of subsidiaries?
Oh, yeah, probably.
So, yeah, that's the thing. They were also big with like remote access early on, and how hilarious that in a world where remote access and cloud computing are like the most important things in the universe, now they're just being sold off because they're not really competitor anymore. It goes quick, folks. You don't stay in the limelight for very long in the tech world. But your mistakes do. They'll just keep coming back to haunt you. And as much as you try to fight it, when you do something really, really overwhelmingly bad, you can't escape it.
Intel fails to get Spectre and Meltdown chip flaw class action suit tossed out. So they're being sued after all of this since 2018. And procedurally, they were saying, this shouldn't count. We shouldn't be able to be sued. But the judge has said, no, you can.
The sub-headline there, cheesed off customers. I have never heard that turn of phrase.
Well, the Register's a European site, isn't it?
Oh, well, maybe that's a British English thing. Cheesed off.
Yeah. So they actually did throw away everything that came before the date where it is agreed. I don't know if it's true or not. Probably they knew a lot earlier. But September 1st, 2017 is when everybody's sort of agreeing that Intel knew. So the people that are getting away with this lawsuit are the people who said, I bought after September 1st, 2017, specifically that holiday season, and they could have told me that they were selling me something that was broken, but they chose not to. It's a strong argument.
Yeah. Also, the evidence about trying to pay researchers to make them keep quiet for well past the industry accepted practices for that.
Yeah. Imagine if somebody did that in like a really important field like the pharmaceutical industry.
Or imagine that you had a company that was paying some people, don't report that we spilled all that acid and killed all those fish. Just give us like 6 months.
No, it's bags of cash. You have to
Bags of cash, yeah. We didn't say that.
Augmented reality. I mean, we see headline after headline about it. I don't see people walking around with big glasses on anywhere.
No.
Of course, I'm not walking around a lot.
I just don't get the appeal yet. I mean, maybe in 5 years I'll be eating my words, but
I think a lot of people feel about augmented reality and NFTs that they got the FOMO so bad because they missed crypto.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this is the next one. This is the one. This is going to make me a billionaire.
But as evidenced by Meta's stock price, not so much.
Yeah, well, it does bring up a lot of questions about privacy and ownership and real versus fake. It's going to be hilarious.
Who owns your address in augmented reality? Probably not you. So this is a story about a guy who found his address in an augmented reality game, and someone else was in his house, and he's like, I didn't even know this was a thing.
It's, what was the name of it? Upland. You ever heard of Upland?
Nope.
Yeah, so Upland is apparently some new thing. Now, here's the crazy thing about
it's blockchain powered.
Well, that makes it perfect, right?
Yeah.
Here's what I don't understand. So this guy found his house in Upland. Someone else had bought it, but was renting it to other people in Upland.
Yep.
Why would you rent the property?
Why would you? Yeah.
It's free real estate.
Yeah, but
Free virtual real estate.
I mean, like, what does renting that property get you in the game? I don't understand that.
Same thing renting gets you in real life. More
Shelter? I don't need it in a game.
That's why I don't
Is it a
understand
survival?
any of this. Like, why would you buy a fake house?
I might rent a house in Icarus.
Where are you going to put your NFTs?
Yeah, I need to show off my apes on the walls of my fake house.
You sell somebody a fake product and then sell them fake storage to keep their fake product.
That's exactly what it is, though. I think that's really what it is.
Would you like to unlock more storage?
That's the problem, though, is that there's not a standardized way of dealing with that yet. Like, how do I keep all my virtual stuff together?
Well, that's another thing they bring up is if you were to go, you're like, all right, I'm going to make sure that nobody gets my house because it's important to me for whatever reason to own my digital house. And you buy it in Upland, that has nothing to do with the next 10 virtual
of the
reality.
same things.
Yeah.
So just why? Who cares?
Why? Who cares? Might also be a question that you would apply to this. I mean, it's impressive. It's, I understand why they're doing it. They're trying to move the industry, and it's nice, but I don't think it's very practical.
The world's fastest gaming monitor hits 500 hertz refresh rate. You dig into the details. It's like, is this some new manufacturing process? Yes, it's a totally new manufacturing process. Is this coming to commercial monitors? Maybe, maybe not. The company that made the manufacturing process doesn't actually manufacture displays. This appears to be a PR stunt to get somebody like Samsung or LG to buy their process from them so these can be mass produced. This is not a mass production product right now.
But it does appear to be real. They didn't mention what kind of video hardware they were using to push that frame rate.
It might be, if it's 1080p or a lower resolution, modern hardware could probably get close to that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that is very important to you if you're a young esports gamer. But everybody else, I think we can deal with, the 300 or so that we get from other monitors.
I'd still be plat, even with that fancy monitor.
Well, the actual panels themselves struggle with 300 hertz.
And, cryptocurrency, blockchain, peer-to-peer, it's all hot right now. You just say that. It's like, actually, it began with the whole, when Bitcoin really started to shoot up, remember people just renamed their thing to blockchain.
Oh, yeah.
And
the Blockchain T Corporation.
Web 3.0.
You promise some crazy thing, and somebody's like, well, how are you going to accomplish that? And blockchain is like this panacea answer where you're like, it's just blockchain. And they're like, all right, take my money. This is one of those situations, but this gentleman who is in charge of it has a bit of a checkered past.
Anthony Lewandowski's latest moonshot is a peer-to-peer telecom network powered by cryptocurrency. So he's selling hardware from $1,000 per unit to $10,000 per unit. It's basically a portable cell tower for these phones. And if your phone wants to use one of these cell towers, it's to do with this cryptocurrency. So if you buy a cell tower, you can start to gather and collect this currency.
You're not referring to them as the proper names, which is the cell tower is a flower. The users of said cell tower are the bees. And then
how dare they slander bees that way?
The cryptocurrency that's going to fuel all this, because you get paid for hosting it, is the pollen. And you've got like a pollen coin. If you will host his box in your house through your ISP, by the way, all this bandwidth is just your home bandwidth, then you can collect pollen as the bees use your flower, which sounds very salacious. That guy's a criminal, though, so...
Maybe don't. Maybe just plant a real pollinator garden.
I don't think that's going to help your wireless signal at all.
No, but think how much it'll help the real bees.
Yeah, the idea is that, this is going to be used for a wireless mesh network.
And he's like, hey, get independence from the existing ISPs and do this totally new thing. No. You're still using Comcast or, whoever.
I guess theoretically, if there were enough of them, you could maybe host one of these without a connection because it would just mesh things together, but we're not there yet.
But how fast are they going to shut that down at the ISP level?
Yeah.
They're not going to tolerate that. They're going to change your user agreement if there's not already something in there that would stop that, and they're going to come down hard on you for wasting their bandwidth. Not wasting, you should be able to do whatever you want with it, but it's not the world we live in.
How dare you make ravioli with this water?
This is spaghetti water. Says it right here on the can. And Wordle. Krista, you're still hyped for Wordle?
Yeah, I play Wordle.
Did you play today?
I did.
How many times do you have to guess?
I think 4.
What was today's word? You don't have to worry about spoiling because they won't see this right away.
Oh, I don't remember what the word was now. I do it while I drink my coffee, and then I immediately forget. I could probably do it twice in one day and not remember.
Does it remember you though, or is it?
It does. Yeah. So if you go back before it flips over for the next day, it'll be like, oh, here's your score. Like you've already played it for the day.
Is that a cookie?
Probably.
So they're tracking you.
They are.
And they're probably going to be
tracked by Wordle.
Yeah, they're going to be doing a lot more of that because I didn't know the origin story of Wordle, but it was just some guy who came up with it.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be owned by something much more powerful.
Which I hate.
The sudden rise of Wordle. Wordle, a popular word game, was purchased by the New York Times on Monday. He probably could have got a lot more money from it, but it's such a simple concept. He's like, you know what?
There's already a dozen different ones that are pretty much the same thing. There's Loodle, which is, of course, lewd words. There's Sweardle, which is swear words. There's Lord of the Rings Dull, which is Lord of the Rings related words, which that one's not very good, but there's a lot of different ones.
Aren't the Lord of the Rings, most of the custom Lord of the Rings language, aren't they really long?
No, not always. But when I played it, I figured it was going to be like Elvish words or like Rohirric words, actually invented words. The one I played, it was just round. I was like, what the hell?
Round?
Yeah, so I guessed like Rohan, and then I was like thinking of other words that I knew. I was like Rodnir, Rochalor, and then it was like round. I was like,
that doesn't make any sense. Like, is it just a word that appeared somewhere in one of Tolkien's books?
I don't know.
Is that
Sometimes the hobbits are described as round. I don't know where it came from.
Are they confused about the franchise? Do they mean short round?
I don't know. I wasn't impressed with Lord of the Rings Dull, but yeah, New York Times got it, so that means they're probably going to monetize it eventually, like they did with their crossword puzzles.
Put it behind their little paywall there.
Yeah.
Ooh, but yeah, I think that will destroy it.
Yeah, I think so too.
People aren't gonna stick
so
with it
too.
for that reason. Well, the electric vehicle situation continues to be crazy because did you see? I think who has the one that they are like giving up on? is it? It might be Chevy, the Bolt. Is that what they have?
Maybe.
But anyway, one of the companies has this car, and there's been so many recalls that they're literally thinking about. It's like, okay, maybe we just stop because
We could improve this, but what if we just gave up instead?
we're already losing money on this. But then hilariously, those companies are so bad. But when Biden does his little, like, hey, come and let's talk about electric vehicles because I love green energy, he won't let Elon Musk anywhere near that place, which is just so funny because it's the whole union thing. But it seems like they're inevitable, and we need a better way to deal with the charging infrastructure. Maybe this is it.
A roadway will charge your EV while you're driving. I'm going to wait for the Thunderfoot and or EEV blog video on this to tell me why it's not going to work. Otherwise, in my head, I'm just imagining it as in F-Zero when you mess up your car and you drive over to the side and it's the...
I feel like we've seen this headline over and over and over again, and I don't know that it's ever come to fruition.
Well, it's a much different environment, sure, but that Japanese maglev train,
Yeah.
that's how that charges.
Yeah.
And it, like, literally just floating above is able to charge. So I think you're going to be close enough to the road. But that thing is also like a giant infrastructure of iron and electromagnets.
Yeah.
Our roads aren't going to be able to deal with that.
Not long term,
One-
especially not with ice storms.
One drunk truck driver is going to pole vault his drive shaft, and then it's just going to be, $500,000 in damages.
Or think about, like, when a pothole gets too bad and now you've exposed
The charging.
very delicate stuff under there.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to maintain these roads.
We don't maintain our roads now.
Yeah, and civilization's only going to start falling faster after this. So
You know what works? Those hooks that the streetcars have. So, you drive over to the side and you hit a button and maybe an antenna pops up, one of those motorized antennas. You charge your car with that. That's way less complicated.
you have to run lines everywhere.
Not everywhere, just, for the 5 miles of charging road that you have.
I don't think it charges that fast with that. Well, I guess if you're using the physical connection, it would charge much faster.
Yeah.
That's also going to be a lot of live electricity.
Ooh, yeah.
It works fine for streetcars and cities. That's live electricity, too.
But nobody else is driving on those tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see that working out very well. But, hey, it'd be great if it did, right? I mean, it'd be great if you're just cruising along and you know what's going to happen, though? You're going to be driving along. You're just going to rear end somebody who's sitting still. And you're like, what are you doing? It's, I had to charge a little, so I just stopped.
I was on empty. I had to we're running out of charger in another mile or two.
If I pull off the road, I won't charge, so I just stopped. NFTs, God, they just keep catching on more and more. And it seems like at this point, every company has to announce something, right? How can you be the company who's not on this cutting edge? And it seems like they expect the super rich to be into NFTs.
Ferrari wants to take its real world wow factor to the metaverse. Yes, your Ferrari NFT. That sounds great. So great.
I feel like we're in some boring dystopia material where the super rich have gotten so super rich they can't find enough stuff to spend their money on. And they're like, now I just need fake virtual goods.
Are you saying that they're trying to take their dollars that are quickly becoming worthless and transfer
Just put them in
into
anything
something
else, yeah.
Can you imagine? Someone tells you, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, it's $250,000 for the car, but we're going to need an extra $50K for the NFT.
And they'd probably pay it because what's $50K if you're mega rich?
What if you just barely got to the point where you can afford that supercar, Krista?
I wouldn't buy a supercar.
I bought a Corvette I could barely afford. We exist.
Not me. I drive my cars into the dirt until it won't go no more.
Well, Windows 11 has a long history of features that no one wants, and it continues to roll those out. They continue to get worse. But here's the thing about it. Many of those features are not only intrusive, but they hurt performance.
Hiding Windows 11's Teams icon doesn't just save taskbar space, it also saves RAM. Because it looks like it's not running, but it's always running.
In fact, when you start up your computer says, well, let me just go ahead and preload Edge and Teams, because I know you're going to want to use those, because they're so good. Somebody commented last week, it's like, what do you don't like about Edge?
I thought it was Teams, yeah.
What don't you like about Teams?
Didn't we discuss it in the episode?
Yeah, I thought so. Copy paste. Have you tried to copy paste in Teams? Teams will copy paste styles from whatever you copy from, even if they're the same color as the background in Teams. Think about that.
It's also janky. It's like weird and slow, and it doesn't respond well.
But when you copy code, a code snippet where the white space is very important, it will cut that out unless you use the code snippet filter. If you're defending Teams, don't comment on our videos anymore. You're out. You're done.
I mean, it's better than some stuff we've used. Like, I think it's better than Skype, but that's not a high bar.
I think that when you copy paste from like Visual Studio Code, it also, like, I usually use Visual Studio Code in dark mode. It will copy my Visual Studio styles over as well, and it's just like, that's weird.
And if you're using light mode and you copy something out of Visual Studio Code that's highlighted like light blue or something, you cannot see it anymore.
Yeah.
So you can copy something out of code and you paste it, and whether you're in light or dark mode, some of it is not visible.
Also, sometimes the keyboard shortcuts for copy paste just mysteriously stop working.
And how about the notifications on mobile?
That's the most annoying thing.
You know what? We could do 30 minutes on why Teams is terrible. We won't, but we could. But you know what else is dying off? And this was not an industry that was growing anymore, but I think the pandemic really put the nail in the coffin here.
Sega leaves the Japanese arcade business for good. The new buyer is called Gigo, Gigo.
Probably Gigo.
So yeah, not a lot of people going to arcades right now because nobody wants to get sick.
I'm kind of surprised arcades are. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe it's like a social thing, but
Right now, arcades should be super popular because you can't buy a video card or a console.
But I think most arcades have moved away from video games, the way we think of them, because the investment is so. If you're trying to get graphical fidelity on par with modern home equipment, yeah, it's actually a very expensive box.
yeah.
The last time I was in Taiwan, most of the arcades there were around the skill-based games
Right.
that gave you awards.
Yeah.
Or it was a hybrid. Like you could play a video game, but it would give you a teddy bear or something if you got through it in a certain amount of time.
Well, I think that's true of most arcades, right? They got the ticket system.
Oh, yeah.
Or it's like, oh, you spent $30 to get 500 tickets. Here's a spider ring. Enjoy that.
Maybe one day I'll be able to save up to get a lava lamp.
Yeah,
That's all I wanted when I
Yeah,
was a
but
kid.
a lot of the machines were just like those claw machines or like the machines that have the Xbox if you can put the key through the hole. And
Right. Or Konami, the video game Konami. They went entirely to making those, was it pachinko machines or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
Like that's all they do. And they take their IPs. So you do like the Castlevania gambling machine, the Metal Gear gambling machine.
Nice.
Way to run that company into the ground. I bet they got hurt real bad because they kind of pivoted to that, and then now.
Yeah. Should have pivoted the other way because if they had a home console that was running Metal Gear, they might have been able to sell that.
Except they don't have anybody that can make any decent games anymore because they've abandoned them all.
Probably couldn't get the parts either.
Well, moving on to the robot section, which is really mostly the space section today, and it's mostly the space graveyard section.
Oh,
because
sad. Spooky.
Today's theme is things in space that we don't want anymore.
The International Space Station will plummet to a watery grave in 2031. Oh.
That's not like a foreboding prediction. That's exactly what we expect to happen. In fact, we're going to cause it. So rip space station.
Maybe we can figure out where it's going to land and get some souvenirs.
It's going to be in the ocean.
No, the Pacific.
Like precisely where it's going to land. And
Could be anywhere in the Pacific.
Save up for the level 1 video of it's like, hey, let's go get space station parts, because why not? It'd be funny.
Those would probably sell a lot on eBay.
I think we could probably make more money and we can kick our plan off much faster if we do that with F-35 parts.
Good news, everyone. We bought a maritime salvage entity.
We'll make a lot of money, but we'll probably be roommates with Julian Assange by the end of it.
Yeah.
But it turns out that, getting garbage out of space, the space station is going to be nice because it's all like one nice package and you just dunk it right in the ocean all at once. It's easy to get rid of that. It's easy to throw away a space station. Much harder to throw away a satellite that you no longer have control of. And we desperately need that because there's too many of them up there.
The Pentagon is looking for garbage collectors in space. No, seriously, the Pentagon is looking for contractors to pilot satellites next to other satellites to rip them out of orbit or debris or whatever.
The numbers, though, were pretty low. So if you're a company, then you're like, hey, I think we could clean up in space. I think we have, the ability to do that. We need some funding. They're only going to give you $250,000, which in terms of space travel, not a ton of money.
Seems like this would be hardwired then for Blue Origin or SpaceX or one of those.
Didn't we just set up Space Force for this? Couldn't they be our intergalactic?
They're the military, not the custodial arm.
What if Elon Musk is like, okay, we're taking our Starlink satellites and we're ripping out the Starlink guts and we're putting in this little servo harpoon thing. And so we launch one of these little micro satellites and it can harpoon one thing and pull it out of orbit. And they probably would be like, that sounds good. Here's your $250,000.
Problem with the harpoon is fragmentation.
Yeah.
Not like that's super serious.
Magnetic.
You're gonna cause. Well, how about we just hug?
Fishnet.
We want to hug them out of orbit. We want to gently embrace them and drag them down till they die. Or actually, in this case, you don't drag them down. You drag them up out of the way. We have a belt of just dead satellites up there. But the problem is, I don't think the Pentagon will want to do business with this company.
The Chinese satellite just grappled, or a Chinese satellite just grappled and pulled another one out of orbit. Wow.
That was a Chinese satellite that it grabbed, but it could have been somebody else's satellite. And that could cause a lot of problems.
It was also a space trash satellite. They said it was one of their old like survey satellites or something like that. And they said that, hey, it stopped responding, and it was due to its orbit was due to decay anyway. So definitely not a military exercise, but of course the U.S. military was freaking out, saying, "Oh my!"
I mean, it is kind of a demonstration of what they're capable of, right?
But they didn't need to get rid of that satellite, right?
They could have just let it go.
Yeah, that would have been fine if it was floating up there. This was totally, first of all, a test, and second of all, a message.
Well, it's like Russia parking its fleet over the transatlantic cable, right?
Well, Russia, in fact, recently, if you'll remember, shot a satellite out of the sky with a missile.
Yeah.
And gave the same excuse. It's like, I was a
We were
garbage
just testing,
satellite.
yeah,
we need to get rid of the garbage satellite. But we had to move the space station twice.
Because it made a cloud of debris. Yeah.
At least the Chinese version doesn't do that, right?
Small mercies in these strange times.
I mean, we really can't say that they are planning to do anything nefarious. They did nothing wrong here. This was perfectly acceptable if they did. But they could do something really nefarious with it. And there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah.
It's like the slightly deranged kid on the playground, goes over and like crushes a tree stump with his hands, and it's like, oh, don't make him angry.
He's just killing caterpillars, and you're like, well, I mean, I guess that's okay, but also kind of weird and messed up.
Now, if you don't get your garbage out of space, or if you create too much space garbage, you risk something like this, which is just embarrassing.
A piece of a SpaceX rocket is on track to collide with the far side of the moon. The moon has captured it in its gravitational well, and it's not a stable orbit.
So when we finally settle on the moon, Elon Musk garbage is going to be there before us.
There is something kind of sad about that, isn't it?
Yeah.
That there's so much garbage in space. If there are aliens, do you think they just pass Earth? Sometimes they're like, God, what a dump.
They roll the window up.
Lock their door.
I don't like to smell that. Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, like, civilian space travel is accelerating at such an amazing pace. I don't think we're keeping up with the safety.
No.
And like dealing with the trash, and just overall, we're gonna have a huge. Let me give you a crazy prediction here. Right, I was thinking about this the other day. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Lusitania, USS Liberty, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, Syrian chemical attack. What if the next one shoot down a spaceship? Mm-hmm. What if a starship gets knocked out of the sky to start World War III? That would do it.
That would.
That would absolutely do it. The American people would get behind that.
Yeah,
because everybody loves NASA.
Exactly. And a lot of people love Elon Musk. One tweet from him is going to do more than anything Biden says. Watch out for that, chat. Watch out for space false flags. They're coming.
All right, now we can all take our helmets off for this portion. But think about it.
And I would say to this headline, I believe that I'm just more comfortable in general. with that gender, right? if I have to interact with somebody, I don't think it's got anything to do with robotics.
People prefer interacting with female robots in hotels, study finds.
This is also notable with just about every assistant software. It's always a woman.
What about Bixby?
Does anyone use Bixby?
No.
I actually don't know. I actually don't know if it's a
No,
man
it
or a woman
does.
voice.
Jeeves was a male. Is that it?
Yeah, so like there was a study a while back that pointed out because it was like Siri, Cortana, Alexa, yeah,
Cortana.
they're all women. And is that because of, people inherently feel more comfortable, or is that like some sort of low grade sexism where it's like, oh, the woman serves me?
Yeah, I guess that they kind of pointed to that in the story.
Yeah, they're not sure. I mean,
But it could also just be, and it is just more pleasant to hear a woman's voice, I think. Right?
well, it used to be Microsoft Sam, and then they switched it to Microsoft Anna.
I think it's kind of telling in the age of where it's like, oh, gender should not even be something we consider, which is fine. If we just don't want to consider gender at all in some aspects, that's fine. But clearly the tech companies are not doing that. They want you to accept theirs over the other one, and that's an advantage they will not ignore. Or just give two voices, right? Just
Yeah,
give
well,
some
it's
choice.
just talk about Microsoft Sam versus Microsoft Anna. You could pick either one.
I would like to choose male, female, or cat girl.
Ooh woo. I preferred Microsoft Sam because he would do the Rafflecopter thing, and I was really upset when they removed him for a while. His voice was just funnier.
Well, the self-driving world, isn't it crazy how the self-driving world, like we thought we knew who was going to be the winners, and now
We don't know.
it's nothing like that. And like, is Uber even doing the self-driving thing
No,
anymore? Like
no.
they all gave up on it because it's so hard. I mean, Tesla's still doing it, but it's not real. It's fake self-driving. And that leaves perhaps Cruise and Waymo, we've heard about Waymo, to pick up the slack, and they seem to be just like iterating, inch by inch, they're doing it.
Cruise to offer free robo-taxi rides in San Francisco for the public without backup drivers. This is a PR stunt, but that's a PR stunt that's definitely needed to get Cruise ahead of Waymo in the public eye.
So you can go to their website and sign up for this if you want. And they said it will be within weeks that you will be able to use this service, and there will be nobody in the car with you, which means those cars will be disgusting by week 3. There's going to be peanut butter so deep in those seats. And,
Someone's just eating almond butter
Yeah.
out of it.
much worse
Smearing it.
things too, but the peanut butter will be the most visible of all of them.
You hope it's peanut butter.
You definitely don't want to run your finger through it and test it. You do
Ugh.
not want to do that. And finally, we have AI that is supposed to, usually when they talk about jobs that AI is going to replace, at this table we feel pretty good because we're like, yeah, that's never going to happen. We're going to have to fix the problems that causes. But as an average programmer, I'm terrified of this one.
DeepMind says its new AI coding engine is as good as an average human programmer.
You know who else is an average programmer?
Boiler snake.
He does not like this.
I was maybe a little less impressed by this because the sheet they gave it was very detailed, and I was like, no client I've ever known has given a sheet that detailed to me.
Yeah, so this was not real world coding examples. This was a challenge, a coding challenge. And then they gave it the exact same prompt as people, but as you can see, you have to do like text manipulation and stuff like that. You're not solving an actual problem here. And I think you're right. I think the very specific details are not something that a robot can expect in a real world.
Yeah. Like, if you gave it the input of, I want it to ship this thing, but only on a full moon, and when we've sacrificed goat's blood, it's going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, but clients come to you with those kind of requests all the time.
Oh, we didn't talk about this, but it turns out that people can use it in an entirely different way than we ever described to you.
And you're going to need to go back and refactor all that code to account for that use case.
This seems deliberate. Why would you do this?
I would love to have a prompt like that, but most of the time you don't get that.
But also, it seems like there's going to be a terrifying thing here, like Spectre, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be some flaw that's embedded so deep in the house of cards of AI, house of AI cards. We find out it's a foundational card, but everything that's been written using that foundation is affected by it.
It's a log4j problem
Oh, no.
embedded in the generated code. No.
And so now we have to throw away all that code, but humans, they don't even know where it begins and ends anymore.
Yeah.
And then, space Lusitania, and we're all dead.
Well, we've got a lot of nonsense lined up for Friday. You've got that to look forward
I think it's
to.
almost all nonsense.
Friday's going to
We
be a
got
lot
a
of fun.
little bit of design and social media. Just a hint.
Teensy.
A
teensy
sprinkle.
Friday's just bananas.
All right, we'll see you guys then. Bye. Hello, welcome back to the Level 1 News. Today is February 11th, and this is mostly nonsense, but I also want to take a minute to remind everybody it's February 11th. It is almost Valentine's Day. If that matters to you, make sure you're ready.
Way to call out the audience.
Singles. Well, listen, sometimes you got to remember.
Are you you got big plans for Valentine's Day? Are you more of you expect things done for you on Valentine's Day, or are you more egalitarian?
More egalitarian. We usually go out, but we don't like being around other people, even pre the thing. So we always do our Valentine's like either a week before or the week after, so we don't have to deal with crowds.
That's illegal.
No.
The Valentine Council has spoken about that. They don't accept it.
Oh. Whoops.
What you're doing during that time is fine, like marital togetherness, but you better not call it Valentine's Day.
Just call it a regular date night.
Because what you call things is very important, and there are certain words that become powerful because the world is stupid. And if you can identify one of those powerful words, maybe you can use it for your own thing, even if your own thing is useless.
Over 500 mobile apps are now using the term metaverse to attract new users.
I'll scroll down to the graph in this article.
I'm just waiting for the Metaverse Tea Company.
It definitely started picking up around October.
There's another one though. Hang on. It's like what type of apps? Yeah. Wait, no.
Metaverse.
That's not it.
Game?
Yeah, so it says what types of apps are doing it. I'd like to point out that teaching and art and design are at the bottom of this list.
Also, I had a really funny image, which was from the metaverse, which was from actual Facebook marketing material, and it's like, how could you see that and not think that the metaverse is worth $250 billion?
Oh, people don't think Facebook's worth that much anymore, as it turns out.
Yeah. Facebook is having a bit of an issue, and it's going to be hard for them to sell the whole metaverse concept because, let's face it, the metaverse doesn't exist yet, right?
No.
Like,
Facebook wants you to think of the metaverse as whatever your best imagination is of the computerized future.
and they want you to spend the next 10 years while you're waiting for that to come to fruition, hanging out on Facebook and talking about it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to work.
Facebook lost daily users for the first time ever last quarter. Although this article breaks it down, it's like, turns out Facebook's not really been getting new users in US and UK and Japan, but the other parts of the world, they were adding users. But this also means that the rest of the world doesn't care. So Facebook has 1.92 billion users, and they were 1.93 billion, so they've shed quite a few users.
Yeah, it was a tiny, tiny incremental drop. We must point out that Facebook is doing fine. They're making money. And they're going to continue to be powerful for a long time. But they're no longer growing. And in the social media game, you have to keep growing.
We're 1 out of 3 people on the planet almost is using this. Like, something is very wrong.
But in 6 months, it might be less than that. And they cannot have that.
They need to expand the marketplace. That's the only thing that matters on Facebook. Weird junk on the marketplace.
I think somebody else could do that so much better.
They could, and it would be easy too, but...
Just like people are doing every other aspect of Facebook better. It seems like people don't want a unified... Because Facebook is trying to get everybody else's features and then cram it all into one big monolithic thing.
And it's difficult to find half of them.
Yeah, I think people like the whole TikTok thing, right? Give me one thing, make it simple, and make it addictive. The pharmaceutical industry has been playing that game forever, and look how much it works for them.
Not even been punished for that.
Dr. Sam's Miracle Cure. It's got morphine and cocaine in it.
Feeling good.
And now for a design section. We don't have design sections every week.
There's
but
not
today,
always a lot of good stories for design, but...
Today we got 2, which is unprecedented.
Gmail's next big redesign starts rolling out next week. I think this is a big improvement.
Well, it's hard not to improve Gmail, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's kind of cluttered. I still think this is a little bit cluttered, but they've added chat features, which I'm not sure how much people actually use them, but this is the old design, the one that you scrolled down to. That's the old design where it's like half your shit is taken up by chat features. Now it's all in one little convenient sidebar.
When you make a new message, is it still an 8x8 pixel box in the corner?
Probably. I don't know anyone who actually uses the chat in Gmail. So I like it because now all your email stuff is visible instead of having to scroll through things.
I have a script blocker that disables it. Like, why would you ever want that?
Yeah, I don't know anybody who uses it.
And I guess this is designed because you have to design art, right? But
yeah, I thought this was more just kind of nonsense. So it's a good introduction to the nonsense section.
I mean, as an artist, this doesn't seem like that's hard to do.
No, this is literally just a flex.
And I imagine the artist himself did not pour the metal.
No, I think this was all done. I think it was done in Switzerland.
Because they have those big foundry buckets with the wheels on them. You think they actually let him?
No, probably not.
That would probably be illegal, right?
A pure gold cube worth $11.7 million is sitting in Central Park, ... with security.
So there are homeless people camped out around it now.
Yeah.
But this is actually going to be featured at a dinner for Wall Street bankers somewhere, or so I read.
And it looks like, look at that. Why? It doesn't even have a base. They just put it in the snow. This article made me angry when I saw it.
It's
it was
hollow.
trending on Twitter for a while too.
It's not solid gold.
Here's our plan for an incredible series of YouTube videos, right? We wait till this is over, whenever they take it out of there, right? Then we cast an identical cube in lead and plate it with gold. Then we put a camera on it and put it out there without the security. Now, that thing is going to be nearly impossible to pick up, right?
But people are going to try.
Yeah. And we get all that on video. It's going to be amazing.
There's some metal. Supposedly there are fake gold bars in Fort Knox.
I can't remember the name of it, but
We use that.
they found a jeweler actually sold bars, 100-ounce bars, and peeled them back. Sure enough, tungsten. It's tungsten. That was tungsten, and I don't know how much money he lost, but and when you're talking about 100 ounces of gold, a lot of money. 100 ounces of gold, that's the kind of thing that you can only buy and sell if you are as ridiculously rich as a Silicon Valley tech person. Because they have an insane amount of money, most of which is probably tied up in their homes, because the property prices out there are crazy. Now, the problem with that, as we discovered in Washington and California, all these states, is when there's a community that's filled with those Silicon Valley people who have billions of dollars, the housing gets shut out for everybody else. Like, you buy a shack for $2 million. Oh, wait, I don't have $2 million. So what the governments have done is they've said, listen, we have to build public housing in your little beautiful communities. And the response was, you can't do that. Why not? What possible reason could we have for not doing that?
A wealthy Silicon Valley town has blocked new affordable housing projects by declaring itself a mountain lion habitat.
I looked this town up on Google Maps because I was interested to see how they would. It is near some wildlife refuges, but like, what?
So in trying to research this, because I was like, there has to be more to it than this, no, there is, but it's so insane, it's crazy. So there are people that live there that have paid the $2 million for a shack. And they're worried that if more housing is built, the price for their $2 million shack will go down, which it will, because it was a $2 million shack.
It's not just about supply and demand.
Yes.
I mean, listen, I know it's going to make some people angry, but if I have to choose between mountain lions or low-income housing in my yard, guess which one I'm picking? I love cats. Also,
but here's the thing,
I'll put
though,
out
like,
a steak for them every now and
they
then.
probably want things like restaurants. They want schools. Like, you need people who can afford to live there, like teachers and garbage men, and
they just bust them in.
So the other thing that's crazy about all this is every now and then you get a cabal of 2 or 3 wealthy people that just buy everything. They support certain local candidates and they support certain local ordinances, and they're so fabulously wealthy that they just take over everything, including the political functions of the town. And so then when they need to pass something like this, it gets passed.
The fix for this is already in progress, and it's a terrible fix. I agree, but what else are you going to do? It's just that everybody else leaves. And what are they left with? Beautiful weather, and you can't get fuel or a sandwich.
I was going to say, I mean, this is going to have a bad effect on local businesses because they're not going to be able to expand or anything.
They have to leave too.
Yeah.
Till nothing's left, and you starve out the big players, and then you can start the cycle over again.
But then the people who bought the $2 million shacks who can't afford to move anywhere, like the big players, they're the ones who get screwed.
Well, they did something stupid, didn't they? Also, I guarantee that we have seen this picture of this mountain lion
He looks so
at
happy.
least 20 times.
It's very cute.
They love this image. It's a great image. He's just like, what are you doing here? Do you know who I am? You know what I could do to you?
They're moving out west. Have you heard that?
The mountain lions?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did they press release that?
They did. And by that, I mean, like, the forestry departments have mentioned that they've been seeing record numbers of them moving back east. Interesting.
All right. Well, you know what? I don't think I could afford to feed them the pricey cat food that I feed my cats, but I might throw them like a scrap or something.
Listen, I can't afford for my home price to go down. I'm going to have to release some mountain lions in our
Into my
neighborhood.
area.
You see Mark Zuckerberg in a mountain lion suit roaming around.
He's making the cat noises.
I love doing stories about Nestle because I love Nestle water. It is, in my opinion, the best bottled water you can get. But the beautiful thing about Nestle is they are just such a horrible company. I mean, they are the monsters of the earth. You think Intel and all the tech companies are terrible? They got nothing on Nestle. And this one is actually in South Africa, so don't worry. I mean, if you're enjoying a Kit Kat right now, don't spit it out unless you're in South Africa. But this is just the kind of thing that Nestle, like they do this kind of thing, and then they're so real sorry about that.
Nestle recalls some Kit Kat bars as they can contain glass. Oops.
Something, give me a broken tooth. I don't know. You got to think of the titles ahead of time.
Ad blocker.
So yeah, this is unfortunate because we got an ad blocker. But this is it's amazing. And once again, I'll point out India just embraced cryptocurrency, space program, incredibly fast technological growth. But on the other hand,
Men's rights activists are doing the introduction of marital rights, something like that, for India.
I think they're protesting.
they're against it.
Yeah.
Marital. I don't know if we can say the full thing without getting demonetized.
But
No, men have certain expectations of their wives, and their wives don't have a choice. And it's like, ooh.
and in most of the world, you call that rape.
Yeah.
But not in India. So they've introduced these new things, and a lot of people are.
Sorry.
Really? A lot of
Wendell's
people.
uncomfortable, so he's moving the water bottle.
Where's the sticky stuff?
I don't know.
Or any of your widgets that we have to prevent this? That's also very noisy.
But I don't think you're saying like, oh, India has cryptocurrency and this, and this, and like they're just now doing this. I think in the U.S., I think that only recently passed like in the 90s.
Is this the equivalent of playing Civ? And it's like, well, my population's illiterate, but we've got nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
The
We
90s,
put all our money into like the different part of the tech tree.
the 90s were a long time ago, Krista. I mean,
Not that long.
relatively. They do point out that the Modi government is very right-wing and kind of theocratic, and the religion has a big part of that, like why this is okay in that society.
Oh, listen, if the trajectory continues, we're not going to be able to make fun of theocracies
Yeah.
anymore.
Oh, we have a theocracy. The current theocracy is climate change. But next time around, we're going to get a real one. Oh, you guys are not going to like the backlash. I'm not going to like it either. I'm going to like it more than this. And the hypocrisy of those government leaders is on display more and more. And you would think that after they've been called out on it time and time again, they would be more cautious about this. But I guess not, because nothing ever happens, right? No one actually ever suffers when they do something like this.
The LA mayor says that he was holding his breath during a maskless picture with Magic Johnson.
Was he called out for this, or did he
Yeah.
just
Oh my God,
casually
yes.
mention it?
That's why he said the holding his breath thing. They were like, hey, you created a mask mandate. I probably shouldn't say that. And now we have pictures of you in public avoiding it. And he's like, oh, it's fine. I was holding my breath. Now, that should be a valid excuse for anybody who's not willing to do that, right?
I went into the restaurant, but I was holding my breath the entire time.
Yeah.
I get the milk run down to 2 minutes, which is how long I can hold my breath because I'm an Olympic diver.
Can you imagine, like, you're in the grocery store and someone passes you, they're maskless and they're just running to the milk cartons.
Or they've got a can of oxygen and they like hit it and then run. But then you still have to exhale, right? So
that's got to be an Always Sunny skit.
On the other side of the political aisle, doing something arguably more embarrassing, is a man who has proven time and time again that he loves being famous. Oh my God, does he need fame?
The memes from this were really funny.
And I think his fame meter is running out, and he's desperate to feed it quarters.
CNN politics.
Why is this even here?
Yeah, why is this even on CNN? Rudy Giuliani hits rock bottom again with the Masked Singer cameo.
The Masked Singer is such a stupid premise.
I know. Can he sing then?
He probably was like just a cameo for like a judge or something.
I didn't see it, but some of the memes and stuff that were coming out of this were hilarious. And some of the memes were from It's Always Sunny. Apparently there's an episode of Always Sunny where Frank is somehow the one that gave him his hair dye that was running during the thing, is what I gather. So.
But I think he was singing, right? Because he was wearing the disguise, and then Robin Thicke and Ken Jeong, I don't know who that is.
He's from Community.
They walked out when he unmasked himself.
Uh-huh.
So he must have been singing, right?
I guess. I don't watch cable TV, but I heard about the Masked Singer from someone else, and I was like, what hellscape are we in? This is what we're watching now.
Was this like when the press reporter for the White House was the Easter Bunny?
Was that
a thing?
Yeah, a long time ago.
For a different... and you ask, why is this on CNN Politics? Because CNN cannot pass up any opportunity to crap on Giuliani because he was a Trump guy. So, they had to have 7 paragraphs about Trump in here, obviously. Because that's what makes people click on it. Amazon, remember they built that big egg?
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like an incredible place to work. They have all these different floors for just random, useless things that you would never think would be in a major business center, one of which is dogs.
There are 6,000 dogs, quote-unquote, working at Amazon, and they get access to these cool perks. So a lot of people bring their dog to work. In this article, it goes over some of the history of that. Apparently a corgi, like some of the early Amazon startup days, a couple would bring their corgi to work.
So there's one whole floor that's just a dog park. And it sounds like they have artificial places for them to pee and poop. Someone has to clean that every day. I bet the custodian doesn't feel that warm about that.
I'm surprised that they would do that with like the liability issue of like if a dog got in a fight or if a dog got a virus or something.
Well, you can keep the dog with you during the workday as well.
Yeah.
We'll do a level one. Level 1 interviews the person that works on the dog park floor, and the interview starts out with, well, I get up in the morning about an hour or two before work because I usually cry in the shower for 30 to 45 minutes.
No, they have to get up 3 hours before, so they spend an hour crying in the shower and then 2 hours on their bus ride.
Yeah, the bus,
Yeah.
the commute. All right, he rides in on the bus, and as he's getting off the bus where he was like cramped in there and so uncomfortable, he sees the dog getting out where it's got the whole back seat of the Lexus.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I have to clean that poop all day.
The dog got its own hammock in the back seat. And
I get a degree in economics.
He goes back to his custodial closet, which is a 2x2 with all the supplies in it. Meanwhile, the dogs get a whole floor.
there's a microwave and a hot plate. The microwave doesn't work.
He makes coffee on a hot plate.
It's just sad.
It's funny because there was a situation where there was a guy who was actually making his coffee on a hot plate because the coffee machine stopped working and the department wouldn't buy him a new one.
That would be so good because he'd be making his on the hot plate, but there's like 18 Keurigs on that floor, but he's not allowed to use them.
Yeah, they don't want to see the help.
Well, the Super Bowl's coming up. Are you guys hyped for that?
Oh, sport ball.
Yeah, we don't care about the sports at all. And I find the Super Bowl to be completely unwatchable because I know a lot of people watch it for the commercials, but I hate commercials so much.
Yeah, I don't. Why would you watch it for commercials?
Yeah, and it's, if you're just wanting to watch a football game, that's the worst one to watch because there's extra commercials. But anyway, there is a technological tie-in, kind of, and it has to do with meme magic, which is what the Bengals are trying to summon to get a win.
Sam Hubbard says the Cincinnati Bengals want to win the Super Bowl for Harambe.
I think Harambe was from the Cincinnati Zoo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And they're like, and the Bengals have been not anywhere near the Super Bowl since that happened. So this is their first chance to honor him. We have a lot of problems out in California with energy, and one of the biggest problems is wildfires. The question is, if a wildfire starts, who's responsible for it? And this answer seems a little dystopian.
California gives PG&E approval to bill customers for wildfires because it's obviously their fault.
Now, I think that last wildfire, now, of course, we're taking their word for it. Didn't they track that back to like a shed that somebody burned?
Yeah, and that one of the wildfires was that professor that liked to set things on fire.
There was also one that was caused by bad PG&E infrastructure.
So how do you land that on any of the customers?
Well, they just, you pay off some politicians and you be wealthy.
The customers don't have bags of cash. That's terrifying, though, especially, if things continue to get worse with weather and things like that. Though that happened in Texas, too, didn't it, when the freeze happened?
It did.
So, there's already precedent for that.
Texas had a fire?
No, Texas had the big freeze last year, and people got charged for their huge overages for when the power was on.
But I don't think this is overages. I think they're charging them for creating fire risk.
Yeah. Screw you for wanting electric in your home.
And letting things dry out.
Yeah.
You should be watering that.
Oh, the city won't let you? Sucks to suck.
Right, there's a water shortage. Here's just a crazy one, and I suppose love finds a way?
Former Missouri teacher accused of sex crime marries students and the charges are dropped.
That is horrific. Also, it's bad news when the lady doesn't have eyebrows. That's like instant villain status if you shave your eyebrows. If you shave your eyebrows, bad news.
That's a bad picture, Krista.
He was 17, she was 23.
Which you wouldn't even bat an eye at if not for the 17.
Yeah.
If it was 18, 24.
She's also in a position of authority over him.
Yeah, that's always a bad thing. But this is a double standard. Well, a lot of guys argue about this double standard, but I think it makes total sense, right? Because if you reverse the genders, then it's like, no.
I think it's wrong either way, but
it's probably wrong. But I think that young man was totally into it.
This article doesn't really talk about it, but it seems like this was a kind of a loophole because under the law, you can't be compelled to testify against your husband or wife.
Right, yeah.
So even after both of them saying you should drop this is crazy, don't do this, they were proceeding ahead with the case.
But
did his parents have to approve the marriage?
No, the prosecutor can just say, hey, let's do this.
You know what? In The Sopranos, when Adriana wanted to marry Chris because she knew that charges were coming down, the FBI explained to her that only counts for everything that happened after the marriage. The Sopranos lied to us.
TV courtroom drama not being accurate? No, I'm wondering in this case, so if you're under, I don't know if this is how it works there, but in Kentucky, if you're under 18, your parents have to approve the marriage.
Nah, you can get away from that. You can get emancipated. There's a process you can go
I wonder
through.
if that kid was emancipated or something.
No, by the time the article says that they were 18.
He was 17 then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, when they started.
He was 18 when they figured out they had a relationship. They're just saying that they had a relationship that existed before then. So it's kind of hearsay.
This is one of those situations where they wanted to go after her, but he didn't want that. So he figured out a way to stop it. Yeah. And, to get married.
Weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
And he's an adult when they got married.
It's weird, but should the government really be involved in that anymore? If he's 18 and he's with it and he's like, all right, fine, let's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of an abusive situation, potentially, though, because it was his teacher, not just a random 24-year-old woman.
Yeah, if you turn 18 and say, stop this, that should be the end of it.
One of the thousands of reasons that I never want to have children. Because imagine the parents in that situation. What a weird situation. The Pentagon has a fun little story that came out today, and I guess this is just an easy way to make the Pentagon not seem like the warmongering monsters that we're going to see that they are when they try another proxy war in the Ukraine. It's not the Ukraine, it's just Ukraine. Every TV personality says the Ukraine. And I think it's all because of Kramer from Seinfeld. That's a hell of a power to have over the zeitgeist. But yeah, this is a non-story.
Nervous wandering chicken caught at U.S. Pentagon security checkpoint. This article is a very long article about
It's crazy,
finding a chicken. They found a chicken. It probably came from somewhere. It had no idea what was going on. It makes you think that, you keep reading thinking it was electronics on the inside. It was an animatronic chicken. It's like the old...
There's going to be details somewhere here.
There was a thing the CIA tried to do with cats, and it immediately got ran over. So no.
Yeah, it was just a chicken that showed up at one of the security checkpoints, and they picked it up.
That's like some local news out of my little town.
Yeah.
Like, a pig got out, but it's national news here.
They also described the chicken as nervous. Have you ever met a chicken that you felt was confident?
No. Yeah, roosters.
Well, that's true. But this was a chicken.
You clicked away.
Yahoo! So we talked about the big Havana Syndrome. Still a mystery. We don't know what's going on there. Turns out that's not the only mystery illness, but this one might be swept a little under the rug.
People struck by Canada's...
Yahoo!
Canada's mysterious brain disorder say they can't talk, walk, or write the letter Q, but it's intermittent. It's intermittent symptoms. When they get an episode, it's just like...
They were afraid it was mad cow, but I think they have ruled that out at this point.
You call into work, it's like, I'm having a non-Q day.
Except you can't even say that. You're just like, blah, blah, blah.
I really thought that the headline writer was going to say they can't write the letter Q, something. It's related to like the QAnon, but it has nothing to do with that.
Why? What a weird...
You should have said that.
Oh no. Sorry.
So, but here's the
Yahoo News.
Here's the crazy thing about it. The people involved here, some of these people have had this for a very long time. And they describe...
2014, I think.
I guess because of the socialized medicine in Canada, they describe going to the hospital, and because it keeps getting kicked over to different departments because nobody knows what this is, they just don't get any treatment at all.
I mean, that happens here too, but...
They keep calling them back, and they're like, yeah, we don't know. Have fun with that.
The hot new disease, it's not going to be this. It's going to be H6N5, the hot new bird flu. It's dropping 2022.
Yeah, this has been around since whenever, 2013, 2014. It's only gotten, 150 people?
Yeah.
And we're not even sure if all those people have the same thing.
Yeah, it could all be different diseases. Weird.
We should call it Ottawa Syndrome. In support of the truckers. Go truckers. In the mail, it's a pretty common strategy, I think, when you mail drugs. You want to mail it to a house that doesn't belong to you, obviously. Don't make the mistake that the Amazon is on guy. Right? And then you go, and after they deliver the package, you go to the porch and you pick it up in the cover of night or whatever. But sometimes they don't deliver that at all because they know there's nobody in that house, and it goes back and it just rots at the mail center until a certain time passes, which apparently it's free. You can do whatever you want with it. I didn't know that was a rule.
Royal Mail investigates video of staff eating hash brownies at work. Where did they come from? An undelivered package.
Now did you get the impression that they weren't positive that's what that was? They were just like, oh, free brownies.
Yeah.
But clearly, I guess they could have been commercial if they came from a legal state. Huh?
Yeah, that's true.
Because I thought,
I'm imagining like someone has put brownies in like a tin, like
their
like
aluminum foil.
Yeah.
And you didn't even question it. It was just like, oh, okay, brownies.
Who knows what could be in here?
I mean, people have sent us food before, and if it's like that, we won't eat it because you never know.
You don't know, yeah.
Somebody, I saw a YouTube comment,
way,
and somebody was like, Wendell, you got to clean the tops of those cans. You don't know.
That's probably a good point. But
well, the box was sealed.
Oh, yeah, that box is fine. But what about the sap? The sap cans.
The sap sucker.
That's a good point.
You've probably got...
Probably didn't even think about it.
You've got mad cow, like those Canadians. You just don't know it yet.
You got the canavirus.
Ooh.
All right. Well, Dale Earnhardt, man. Dale Earnhardt was a god when we were young. Krista, were you old enough to experience the madness
I
of Dale Earnhardt?
moved back here, and it was still pretty big. Like, my cousin had the big number 3 flag above his bed.
Yeah. When I would go to Christmas and some of the families, every item, like somebody would get 20 different things for Christmas, every item was Dale Earnhardt.
It was huge. I didn't understand it at the time. I still kind of don't understand it, but...
And Dale Earnhardt, if you don't know about him, he was a very popular race car driver. His nickname was the Intimidator because he really like pushed the other cars on the track around. He wasn't afraid to take risks, which ultimately
wasn't good in the end.
But that was his whole thing is like, you're not going to push me around. I'm going to drive where I want to drive, and you can't stop me, which certainly seems like that spirit would have led to this.
Crash suspect says Dale Earnhardt's ghost told him to drive the wrong way. He was in court, and his lawyer didn't stop him from saying this.
Now, here is the evidence that might point to another thing about it, is that in his system when they brought him in was methamphetamine and heroin.
Do you think the judge heard that argument? He's like, yeah, all right, go number 3. And then he's like, done. And he just banged his gavel.
God bless Chevrolet. Send that man home.
People.
Oh, and his other excuse was, okay, if Dale Earnhardt told you that, why did Dale Earnhardt tell you to drive on the wrong side of the road? Like, what was the ghost of Dale Earnhardt trying to accomplish? And it turns out it was to raise awareness to bring NASCAR back to Las Vegas. Because apparently NASCAR is not in Las Vegas anymore. Do they have a speedway in Las Vegas? I guess they must, right?
Anything they can gamble on, I'm sure.
Gamble on NASCAR? What about that? Would be the slowest gambling payback in the history of the world. You have to watch all that race?
Yeah.
I guess it happens.
I'm sure it does.
Here's the most disturbing story of the week. It raises a lot of questions about, like, what leads you to a life of OnlyFans. We shouldn't get into that. But it's just dark all around. I don't know how to introduce this one.
Carla Ramirez, OnlyFans star claims that her dad subscribed to her account under multiple phony names. Ugh. But it's darker than that. You'll have to read the story. It's just, I don't know.
Turns out...
that may have been an ongoing thing before the OnlyFans.
I get the impression she tried to get away from him, right?
And this was how she funded it.
And probably had no interaction with him at all because now she's self-sufficient because she's probably somewhat famous. I've not heard of her, but, assuming if she's got a news story about her, she's a popular on OnlyFans. And he still kept coming.
Yeah.
Ugh. Not illegal.
Well, the other stuff probably was.
She'd probably have to get like a restraining order for that to be illegal. But
Can a restraining order stop me from going to a website you're on? I don't think so.
it might be.
Don't look at my images online. I don't think you can go that far. Like you say, is there a statute of limitations on that kind of thing? Hopefully not. So retroactively, you can do something. Maybe she should go to him and just be like, listen, this can go one of two ways. Either you move to Alaska or we open this can of worms.
You're going to end it with, I kill you. But that's fine too.
I love how Krista, there's a dark place that she'll go to when certain lines are crossed. One time on the Twitch stream, I was like, Krista, and this was early on in your marriage, I was like, Krista, what would you do if you found out your husband was cheating? And she didn't miss, there was not even a millisecond. She was like, I'd poison him.
Not really.
All right, no, not really. So, but don't do that. You shouldn't poison people. And the other thing that you shouldn't do is censor things because, it's so stupid.
It is.
And it looks ridiculous. Now, we've heard about, again, this is both sides of the aisle. A lot of people want to censor things because they are anti, gay or whatever, or they have something about race in them. But then on the other side, they're trying to get rid of new books that have that same content in them. So I guess we shouldn't have any books.
Banned.
That's
Books
where we're
on
going.
race and sexuality are disappearing from Texas schools in record numbers. I think a couple of people pointed out on the last episode, it's like, these aren't banned, they're just blocked from the curriculum. And it's like, that's kind of what the definition of banned is.
I don't think that's true here, though, because I don't think these are being taught in any curriculum.
Yeah, but they're not in the school library anymore.
Like, yeah,
Is
the
everything
school
in the
library
school
can't
library
carry it.
otherwise being taught? Because the library is going to be really, really small if it's only what is being taught.
Well, in a lot of libraries, too, they do I think it was called Iliad. It's like the interlibrary loan system or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And so could you not get those books if you're at in a banned
If you
Texas school?
request them.
Yeah.
That's for public libraries, right?
Yeah.
This is a college library. I don't know if they do that.
It's a scary time.
Yeah.
You should probably go read all the books that have been banned just to see what's in them. Just for no other reason.
Yeah, it's the Barbara Streisand effect. It's like, if you tell me not to read it, I'm going to read it.
And I got news for you. Because I assume that the reason they do this, or the reason they say they do this, is because they're afraid that it's going to influence their children, right? If your child can read a book and then be like, oh, maybe I am gay. Your kid was gay all along. Like, just accept it. That's not something that a book can do.
Yeah. The book's turning the kid's gay.
This sounds exciting and amazing. Let's give this a try.
I don't think the book did it.
Israel is, when you get to the whole like woke hierarchy, Whoopi Goldberg just taught us where they stand in terms of that. You know, they have the power on that list.
You know, she's coming back to Picard, right? To the Picard TV series.
Is she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't she an alien?
Yeah.
How are they going to explain the aging?
Well, do aliens age? That's a canon question. Do they?
No,
age?
she was when they did the time travel episode to 1800 San Francisco. She was alive then and basically unchanged.
Oh.
I don't think Whoopi Goldberg is a good actor.
I've only seen her in a few. I've seen her in Sister Act,
Ghost. Have you seen Ghost?
Cinderella.
Ghost.
No.
Never seen Ghost, Krista? Wow. Your movie, like the blanks in your movie history are crazy.
Yeah, I just don't watch a lot of movies.
But anyway, Israel, as much as we must admit that in the past they suffered a lot of indignities and horrors, doesn't excuse what you do now, which would be to visit those same things on a different group of people, maybe?
Israel calls on Amnesty International not to release apartheid report. Apartheid.
And if you want to remember how to say that, some people call Elon Musk apartheid Clyde.
Yeah.
So yeah, they point out that a lot of the stuff that they're doing is that they're sitting on land that is not their land. They are just sort of squatting on it and building walls and forcing people out of it. Now, to be fair, there's two sides of that argument for sure, because some of those people are shooting rockets at them, thus the lasers from the previous episode. But it's not as cut and dry as this is all, quote unquote, false, biased, and anti-Semitic. You don't get to play that card every time. I'm sorry. And Golden Corral, we used to go to Golden Corral pretty often, although Krista hates it.
I don't hate it. It's just meh. It's okay.
That's the whole design, Krista.
It's okay.
It's a large variety of okay food.
I hadn't seen the video.
I do like the atmosphere of Golden Corral, partly because it's full of white trash like this.
And partly because of the chocolate fountain.
The chocolate fountain is beautiful to watch.
But Golden Corral definitely does attract a certain kind of customer, right? And when you tell those customers that they paid for steak night, but you're out of steak, it gets rough.
Massive brawl breaks out in Vinsalem Golden Corral over alleged steak shortage.
The video is so good. I love that there are high chairs being passed around.
This is on CBS Philly. So, I mean, just leave.
That is quite the melee. Oh, somebody got a good shot with that high chair. You know what? I would hold the high chair from the top, though. Because you get more
yeah, you want to
momentum.
jump on a table and then...
Yeah, and it flares out at the bottom, so you're going to get more... Yeah, if you're in a fight with a high chair, I would definitely hold it. I wouldn't hold it by the bottom. I'd hold it by the top.
If you're angry at a Golden Corral for not carrying your steak on steak night...
Somebody should have stood up and said, "There's a Wendy's right across the road."
And someone said, "Let's burn it. Let's burn it down." Just like those horrible, horrible terrorist truckers. Did you see the Tim Hortons that they burned down?
No.
Not Tim Hortons.
Oh, did they not do that?
I think you're making things up.
I heard that there were shots fired into a crowd up there.
I don't think that was true
Oh,
either.
I'm still thinking of the other one. Oh, yeah. Now, they broke windows out of buildings and looted. Oh,
No.
God, my facts are just all over the road here. But
They killed the barbecue guy? No.
they did. I think they said some angry words in a a homeless shelter or something, and they latched onto that so hard. It's like, they're terrorists. They said bad things at the homeless shelter. But yeah, those problems probably seem pretty pale to you in comparison to your life if you are a woman living in Iran. But good news, you're going to get a brand new freedom, probably only this year, unless they perform well next year as well.
Some women allowed into stadium as Iran secures a World Cup spot. Some women.
2,000.
Just a few.
How do you think they decided who got those tickets?
Whoever paid the most.
Some kind of lottery. I don't know.
It's always whoever paid the most. That's always the answer.
You know the fun thing too about the community of truck drivers is like when some rando shows up, it's like, who are you? And it's like, oh, I do long haul trucking, and it's like, no one knows you.
What podcast do you listen to? And he's like, I don't know.
For the most part, that's true. The most amazing thing about the truckers is that they're basically Occupy Wall Street, except it's a group of people who are motivated, responsible, and incredible at logistics.
They have been incredible, not only at logistics, but also rooting out people that are agitators that don't belong there. They've got some amazing videos where it's like, wait a minute, you're actually not one of us. Get out.
It's amazing how quickly that happens. And in literally every story we've had in the last 2 years, how quickly you see a video and then you realize it's agitators later.
Yeah.
There was the guy with the Confederate flag never took the mask off.
Yeah.
And none of these people were wearing masks. Because these are, anti-vaxxer type people. And it's like, oh, really? Really? You're that guy? Although I did watch one video. There's a channel on YouTube called Walks. Have you seen that? It's a guy who his whole YouTube channel is nothing but walking around in Ottawa. And like, that's all he does. He just makes videos. He walks around and he shows you those videos. All of a sudden, he's got the most popular channel in the fucking universe. But he was walking through, and he like one of their little side encampments, and some Karen came out, a trucker Karen, and she was like, "You can't film here." And he just like looked at the truck that she got out of that had freedom written across it in giant block letters. And it's like, what? I can't? Really? I think the world, for the most part, is with the truckers. Would you agree?
Seems like
they've got a lot of public opinion behind them. In comparison to Ubisoft, who has very little public support, and they just can't figure out why.
Ubisoft exec defends NFTs, saying players, quote unquote, don't get it because we need NFTs in the game.
It's the player base that's wrong.
Yeah.
Not me.
No, I get it. I just don't like it.
So he said stuff like, quartz is really just a first step that should lead to something bigger.
What is it?
Also bad. We don't want that. Something that will more easily be understood by our players, because our players are too stupid to understand the money grab that we're doing right now. Way to dig that hole a little bit deeper there, sir. And our final story, sometimes when I put one of these stories in the Level 1 news, I'm just thinking about how hilarious it's going to be when Krista reacts to it.
I saw this beforehand. I think I kind of spoiled it the other day. But
Because, I knew that you would take special offense at this. And let's be fair, when you break all the parts down, it seems like this is a net win for everybody, honestly, except for the Amazon customer. But it is disgusting that you get this special level of privilege.
Rotterdam, you want to do it?
Rotterdam Bridge taken apart to let through Jeff Bezos' pleasure yacht. It is too large to fit under this historical bridge.
He's paying for it. He's paying a lot of money to have it taken down. But the people in the place are upset because they say, wait a minute, the city promised not to do that again.
Yeah, this is a cultural landmark, I guess, for the city. And so it's only been dismantled, I think, once. It was rebuilt after the war, and they were like, it'll never come down again. And now, with enough money, it will come down again. And they're going to put it back up, but let's hope nothing is damaged or lost in that process.
Now, here's the crazy thing about this. You're looking at this bridge, and you're like, wait a minute, that's an elevator bridge, right? Yeah, that ship is so massively huge, it won't fit under there. That's what sort of offense to God that Jeff Bezos is bringing into the waters out here.
I hope when he sails through there that the citizens of Rotterdam just come out with paintball guns and just plaster it.
There's probably turrets on board, Krista. They shouldn't do that.
It's got private security who shoot back with real bullets.
The other crazy thing about this is they were like, well, okay, give us some details. Like, how exactly are you going to take this apart? And they're like, well, we're not sure. We just know that we're going to do it.
That never
Lord
ends
Bezos
well.
says.
Yeah. They're going to lose one like really important screw during that process, and then it's never going back up.
Have you seen the conference room at City Hall? It's filled with bags of cash.
Some fisherman, I mean, this water's probably far too polluted, but let's pretend there's fish in that water. Some local fisherman is like eating his fish at home, and he bites into the screw, and he's like, what's that? And then a window behind him, you see the bridge just come down slowly.
Just sinks into the bay.
Oh, Lord.
Well, I hope Jeff enjoys his mega yacht. He deserves it.
Oh yeah. Do you think he had that built so he can, just float away from societal collapse?
I bet that mega yacht is pretty self-sufficient, right? Everything but fuel. I imagine it
Fuel and
uses
food.
so much fuel. Now, you can store a lot of food on something that big. He
But
can
not
probably
forever.
put 6 months of, but 6 months. After 6 months, either society is back to something you can step back into, or it's never coming back, right?
Yeah. That's his plan all along.
Nah, he needs us. One thing about Jeff Bezos, he needs us.
He doesn't know that we're not all replaceable, though.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are finding it out because truckers are very important. I'm not looking forward to the supply chain issues that are inevitably coming from that, but maybe it'll make things better.
Anyway, have a good weekend. Bye.